So we can do what's Hondo on the mic. From Leo's Paradise, random stream drop like a Dragon Ball fight. No lie, plan stream stacking up, but here's a twist in time. Freestyling on the deck like Luffy's punchlines. Up the channels faster than Zoro sword swings. Gaming pop culture, it's the chaos he brings. Talking movie reboots, superhero hype. Hondo passing the mic, now Bishop's in sight. Cutting flip screen, frame by frame, I align. Laying bass lines heavy, keep the rhythm divine. Jumping 5 videos, can't keep up with the pace. Pass the mic back, Leo's leading the chase. Off the rails, no script, just a freestyle ride. Nerdcore king, let the randomness collide. Playing or not, Leo's got the flow to entice. It's words of paradise, the chaos comes to life. No script, just a freestyle ride. Nerdcore king, let the randomness collide. Plan or not, Leo's got the flow to entice. It's words of paradise, the chaos comes to life. No script, just a freestyle ride. Nerdcore king, let the randomness collide. Plan or not, Leo's got the flow to entice. It's words of paradise, the chaos comes to life.
What's up, Vital Idols? Welcome back to the lunch hour. How are you doing? For me, it's less of a lunch hour and more of a brunch because your boy massively overslept. Thank God I put half this show together last night. But no, seriously, I hope y'all are doing great. Hope you're getting some protein on that lunch hour. You know, your boy got that green tea. Absolutely no sugar to it. Oh, dude, we got one hell of a show. Not only we got what's in the title, right? We got Leaflit debating people who are pro-ICE. We got some console talk. You know, we of course will end the show. Wednesdays and Thursdays usually pretty hard politics days. We always try to end the show with something pop culture related, you know, to palate cleanse a little bit. But we also got Virginia apparently turning into a Marxist hellhole. There's Happy 2026. Our video games aren't yet. We're gonna get to have the video games being art debate. So we got no shortage of shit to talk about on this fine day. But we gotta see who all up in this bitch. Let's see. Who is here? We got St. Hugo was first. Also, St. Hugo, I saw what you put in Discord. Shout out. Apparently your boy got a tweet featured in the Hero Hate video. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Thanks for sharing. I didn't know that. That's awesome. Seabrew is up in this bitch. Dr. Kocho Dragon, Stallo Greenskin, Fractal Mage is here. Seabrew says, minimal effort, so vanilla. Of course, you use that song, Vanilla Ice reference. Guys, I'm gonna be real. I saw Vanilla Ice a few years ago. Kinda put on a kick-ass show. Ain't even gonna front. Ain't even gonna front. Vanilla Ice put on a pretty damn fun show. Let's see, who else we got? Lionheart Cowboy, Draconic, Sleeping Nova, It Tizzle is here. Games are art, but they're also a product. If your art sucks, no, yeah. Oh, don't worry. Don't worry. We're gonna be getting into all of that. But we're gonna start off. We're gonna start off with Virginia turning into a Marxist hellhole. And why are we starting off with this? Well, for one, because everybody is talking about Minneapolis, right? Everybody is talking about Minneapolis. So no one knows what's going on. I don't even know what's going on with Virginia. So when we see a video titled Virginia turned into a Marxist hellhole, I'm curious. Yo, what up, Sarah Season?
All right, so less than a week ago, a Democrat government took power in Virginia, and they are ushering in nothing less than a Marxist hellscape. I mean, I feel like we are watching a slew of cartoon villains with every single bill and amendment they are proposing. And in looking at all of this, you know, you could argue, especially if you're somebody who hates Trump, that, you know, he did the exact same thing. He came into office a year ago this week and immediately...
Well, no. Out the gate, you can't. You can't argue he did the same thing. Because your whole thing is they're turning it into a Marxist hellscape. Well, he certainly didn't do anything that was relatively Marxist or whatnot. He ain't going as hard as I want him to. And I get it. I'm being pedantic. She's saying that he came in and did the same thing in terms of threw out a bunch of legislation and stuff. Point being, one of these things is not like the other. A lot of what he did was undoing what previous administrations had done, so. What up,
all
Jana?
of these hundreds of sweeping executive orders, so why are we complaining? But there's a big difference. There is actually a huge difference, because what is happening in Virginia is policymaking. It is actively changing laws that will directly impact citizens, whereas executive orders, when done by the president, are policy directives. They signal priorities and they guide agencies, but without Congress codifying any of these executive orders, they are temporary. And
Hey, yo, thanks for the sub, Sarah. Appreciate you.
next administration just can undo them or make their own. And that's why the election in Virginia mattered so much. It's why New Jersey mattered so much. It's why New York City mattered so much. All of this is further proof that local elections have consequences.
And you know what? A lot of people are guilty of this. And to be fair, I'm sometimes guilty of it. I'm not as guilty of it as others, but a lot of people are guilty of this. Only giving a shit about the big national election. Not even the midterms, dude. Like, do you realize the fall off between the presidential election to the midterms? Like, the reason the left is going to take the midterms, and mind you, they are, unless something radically changes over the course of this year, the left is going to dominate in the midterms. And the reason is because most people don't give a fuck beyond the presidential election. They don't even know when their local elections are. They don't show up to them. They don't go. They don't vote. Like, this is categorically, it is the worst way for people to think. If you don't want to see your homeland turned into a Marxist hellscape, then by God, you need to get out to your local elections. You need to show up to midterms, basically more than just showing up once every 4 years, all right? Like, the elections ain't the fucking Olympics.
While so many Republicans are sitting on their hands and squabbling, Democrats around the country are running full steam ahead, and you will not believe the insane bills they are trying to pass. Now, before we talk about that, make sure that you like this video, subscribe to the channel if you've not already, and of course, if you don't want to miss one of our incredible, funny, amazing, insightful episodes, make sure that you ring that notification bell so that you can stay up.
All right, I'll give her insightful. But funny? Look, Brett, I like you and all, but you're still a woman, and women can't be funny.
To date. I could very well just like sit here and read off all of the bills to you, direct you to a couple of tweets, talk about the amendments that they're proposing in Virginia, and we will do some of that. But I do want to give you a little bit of context here because I do think that is important. So remember, in November, we had huge elections, and a lot of people were focused on Mamdani and New York City, but Virginia was also major.
To be fair, a lot of people focus on New York City and Mamdani because it was so oppressively socialist, so oppressively, honestly, communist, so oppressively Islamic. Because, I mean, again, if you guys don't remember, if you took all the Islamic voters out of the voting pool in New York, Mamdani wasn't dominating, not even close. Actually, I believe it was Cuomo that would have been the winner if you count out the Muslim vote. So there was so much like ethnic and religious aspects to the New York race, and again, you've obviously got the communist aspect. I didn't hear shit about what was going on in Michigan. Like, not Michigan, Virginia. I keep saying Michigan. I mean Virginia. I didn't hear anything about what was going on in Virginia. It wasn't getting any media coverage
in play. And Republicans were very worried that with Glenn Youngkin leaving office, they were going to lose their hold over the state. And they should have been worried because there was a major blue wave. The Virginia House of Delegates retained their Democrat majority. They even picked up more seats. They now narrowly have their state Senate. The new lieutenant governor is a Democrat. Jay Jones, who literally fantasized about Republican children dying, was elected attorney general, which is just great to hear, obviously. And Democrat Abigail Spanberger was elected Virginia's first female governor. And you might not know that name, but I am certain that you know this image from way back in COVID days.
She's right. I didn't know that name, but I do know the image. She's 100% right. This is who they picked? Bro, they picked a fucking Umbrella Corporation R&D stooge?
To take a look at that, that is her. That is Abigail Spanberger wearing a glorified Walmart bag over the top of her head in the name of science and health during COVID-19. And hopefully that tells you why Virginia is in such dire trouble. And unlike most Republicans in office, now that they have this Democrat trifecta in the state government, they are not wasting any time. No squabbling, no beating around the bush, no wagging fingers. They got in and they are actively making Virginia, California, possibly even worse. Just watch this.
Democrats now hold a trifecta in the Commonwealth, and with that, they immediately introduced new bills with new tax increases. I'm going to read just a couple of them for you here. You have HB 978, which extends the retail sales tax to things like dry cleaning, landscaping, animal care, home and vehicle repairs, and shipping services. And in that vein, there's also HB 900, which...
Say it with me, chat. Say it with me. 3 very simple words. all single syllables. Well, actually, the first one's a few syllables, but not enough that even black people can't say it. Taxation is theft.
Poses a tax on every delivery in Northern Virginia. That means UPS, Amazon, Uber Eats. Also, House Bill 919 seeks to impose an 11% tax on firearms.
And guys, we're going to talk about this a little later, but what is so funny to me is that, like most of the elections that took place in November, the candidates who won, they ran strongly on the economy and affordability. You know, Mamdani was talking about free this, free that, free China.
Yeah, economy, affordability. Ain't no way on God's green earth that higher taxes fix the fucking economy. You cannot tax the wealthy into raising those that are poor out of poverty. It like mathematically doesn't fucking work.
Childcare, free housing. And Abigail Spanberger did the exact same thing. She ran on affordability. So it's incredibly ironic that, 48 hours after being installed as governor, everything that is happening under her watch is increasing costs for Virginians, is raising their taxes. But anyway, moving on from that Fox clip, that is not all. And those are far from being the
You know what? When we get enough members to add new emojis, I think that'll be the next thing we do. I think next time we get enough members to add new emojis, we need a taxation is theft emoji. I'm not sure how I'm going to go about it because it needs to be something still sort of nerd oriented that fits the vibe. But we definitely got to do a taxation is theft emoji.
Most extreme measures that they are taking in Virginia, because the proposed bills range from, yes, massive tax increases to eliminating the minimum sentencing for crimes like rape, manslaughter, and possession of child pornography. Just take a look at this.
Wait, what? Democrats in Virginia have introduced a bill to eliminate mandatory minimum sentencing for rape, manslaughter, assaulting a law enforcement officer, possession, and distribution of child. Are you fucking joking? There's gotta be more to this, right?
Democrats in Virginia have introduced a bill to eliminate mandatory minimum sentencing for rape, manslaughter, assaulting a law enforcement officer, and possession and distribution of child pornography. And
bro, I know that Fallout 76 takes place in Virginia, right? Or maybe it takes place in West Virginia. Maybe both. I don't fucking remember. Point is, Bethesda got it wrong. Alright, Bethesda got it wrong. It ain't gonna be fucking Fallout, it's gonna be Mad Max. I know there really ain't much of a difference and whatnot, considering that Fallout was heavily based on Mad Max, but if you had to give me a choice of which world I'd rather live in, Fallout or Mad Max, I'm choosing Fallout every time, because at least they got, laser guns and shit. This is dystopian.
All repeat violent felonies. And the Virginia politicians who are trying to push this through, the activists who are in support of things like this, they always say that this is just common sense. This ends a one-size-fits-all approach for the judicial system. This is in favor of experience.
One size does fit all when it comes to, for example, child pornography. You see child pornography, the one size is wood chipper. Now, you might make the argument, yo, there's a lot of fat fucks out there that fap into little kids. Okay, maybe one size doesn't fit all. Maybe we need to buy, the jumbo size wood chipper. But it's just splitting hairs at that point, or splitting wood chips.
Experienced judges deciding in each individual case. Excuse me, if I have lived through the last 6 years and I now do not trust a hyper-politicized, experienced judge anymore. Because I've watched sentencing, I have watched unfair sentencing, and I am now in favor of a lot of these minimum sentences, especially in cases of, rape and manslaughter. Somebody said this kind of law is why elderly people get killed or beaten up in San Francisco, and the perp gets a few years. Super evil policy. No, Andrew, it's common sense. It's about rehabilitation. You should be in support of that. Common sense. Now, on top of that, and this is just particularly hilarious to me, while all eyes are obviously on Minneapolis and the explosion of Medicaid and Medicare fraud in this country, Virginia decided that, they too were going to do something about this.
Yeah, and you know what? Maybe this is just my conspiratorial brain, but maybe that's why Minneapolis is getting so much news coverage. Maybe that's why everybody is talking about Minneapolis right now, because anytime a story is exploding in the news, it's almost always if not a psyop, at the very least, a cover-up for something else. Maybe this is a effort, because you gotta remember, Fox News might be covering this. She sourced Fox News. Guys, Fox News is controlled opposition, right? Fox News isn't actually boomer right-wing media. No. Fox News is controlled opposition. Whatever the left talking points are, Fox News takes like softball versions of the opposite to give the illusion that the entire media conglomeration isn't basically on the single side, which is the side of money and you know, party power in politics.
Because all of their constituents are, you know, watching Nick Shirley's videos. They are seeing the testimonies that are happening in Congress. They are going to take action. And so obviously, they have decided that they're going to try to make it illegal for anyone in the Virginia government to request verification or proof of eligibility from a non-profit receiving state funds. So what that means is that somebody in government, if this passes,
Exactly,
will not be
Mr.
able to
Kruger. Bingo, bango, bongo. How the government released UFO stuff to divert from the Hunter Biden laptop story. That is something that happens nearly every, like, so you can trace this all the way back. Obviously, it goes back even further than Obama, right? But like, that's one of the earliest ones that I remember actively noticing was when Obama made gay marriage legal, and that was the big thing, that was overall the news coverage. There was a secret White House meeting that was being convened at like 3 a.m. or something. I don't remember what law they passed or what bill was proposed or whatnot, but basically they used all the media circus around the celebrations about legalizing gay marriage to put forth this massive, I think it was like a military expansion bill, to dump way more money into the military, but I could be wrong on what the bill was. Again, I'm just going off memory, and this was like obviously well over fucking like 12 years ago at this point. Wait, when was gay marriage legalized? 2012? Was gay marriage 2012? So maybe 14 years ago? Anyway, point is, I'm going off memory, but the gay marriage shit, it wasn't just to make the gays happy and whatnot. It was a distraction method.
Say, hey, I don't really trust that you have 150 kids in this empty daycare building. Could you show me proof of that? No. That's oppressive. That's probably racist. We cannot request that. I mean, guys, that is not just turning a blind eye. That's not a, you know, oops, we lost some money. That is not even getting bullied by threats of racism and cowering like they did in Minnesota. This is straight up enabling fraud as a middle finger to Republicans. And it really does seem like they want to usher in fraud in many ways. Like another bill that they are proposing would prohibit the hand counting of election ballots for any reason. Not at all.
That is the Republican Party, control opposition, pretend to recognize the problem, then you fuck all and nothing about it. Absolutely. You're 100% correct. Like, yes, here's the dealio, guys. We talk the Democrats, the Republicans, the whole nine. And I've said this I don't know how many times. I'm going to continue to fucking say it. It's all bullshit. There's one party, and it's the Uniparty. Now, you might have a handful of folk within the governmental structure that don't adhere to the Uniparty, right? Very rare. I mean, you could say maybe like a Thomas Massey type, right? And even then, we're talking, it's debatable. But yes, by and large, it's a fucking Uniparty.
Decoy, who has a great YouTube channel, by the way, I love his stuff, he commented under this post and he said, can't convince me that this is for any reason other than fraud. Yeah, I mean, it reminds me how fraudulent everything in our country is, even down to the cell phone companies, but not my friends over at Pure Talk. Now, do you know what Pure Talk's favorite
Alright guys, you know the dealio, when we stealing people's content, we'll let the ad reads play out.
holiday is? It's President's Day, because they believe that Stellar wireless service should only cost you a Jackson and a Lincoln. For just $25 a month, Pure Talk gives you unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data. Now compare that to Big Wireless, where they would rather celebrate Benjamin Franklin Day so that they can charge your family hundreds every single month, but you deserve better. Pure Talk is an American wireless company who supports...
Now, to be fair, I would also celebrate Benjamin Franklin Day. He like pounding that blackness, bro. He had that massive jungle fever. Ben Franklin underrated as fuck. Oh, wait, no, maybe that's Thomas Jefferson. Honestly, it was probably both.
Our veterans and invest in a U.S.-only customer service team, which is a major win, so that when you call trying to get help, you're talking to somebody right here at home. Now, of course, you are wondering about quality, and Pure Talk uses the same towers as the big carrier, so you can enjoy superior 5G coverage without the inflated price. Just $25 a month for talk, text, and plenty of data.
Ben
No
Franklin was
contracts,
on
no
Guilt
cancellation
Hunter
fees.
base.
What are you waiting for? Just go to puretalk.com/Cooper, and you will get 50% off your first month. Again, that is puretalk.com/Cooper to make the switch to Pure Talk. And after you sign up, you can call your friends and you can tell them about Jevity's full body health testing. I am so excited to be working with Jevity. Guys, Jevity is how you cut through the noise and start optimizing your lifestyle for your body. Because you've got the media telling you to blindly trust Big Pharma. You have your Instagram feed and it's filled with influencers shilling out a miracle supplement or drug. You have Kim from Book Club swearing that being vegan is the answer to everything. And everyone has an agenda, but nobody is...
Dude, speaking of being vegan being an answer to everything, right? All right, completely anecdotal. Completely like unrelated at all to what's being talked about, but I find this funny. So I got this ex-girlfriend, right? We used to follow each other on Instagram. And dude, she used to have a rocking body, bro. She used to have just a fucking rocking body. And she was always a vegetarian. All right, fair enough, whatever. That's gay as fuck, but it's manageable. Bro, she switched to veganism, and I've been seeing her new Instagram pictures, and she's starting to kind of like balloon up a little. It's like, hey, I don't know what they putting in your like vegan food and whatnot, but I can just look at the results, and that shit can't be healthy, son.
Actually looking at what your body needs, sometimes not even your doctor's. And that is why I am obsessed with Jevity. They are not pushing trends or cookie cutter protocols. They build plans tailored to you based on your lab work. 100 plus biomarkers showing what is actually happening inside your body. It goes way beyond normal lab panels at your general practitioner. And honestly, as somebody who lives in the middle of nowhere, I cannot tell you how much I love that Jevity sends mobile phlebotomists to your house for the blood work. I am not having to drive an hour each way for appointments or sitting in dirty waiting rooms with a newborn. They came to me, I got my results, and the care team was able to walk.
Give you guys 3 guesses as to why those waiting rooms are so dirty. Aliens. And we ain't talking the History Channel kind.
Walk me through everything virtually. It has made prioritizing my health actually doable postpartum instead of just another thing on my New Year's to-do list. So if that sounds like something that you need, head on over to...
Well, so Ginty Max says, I made that mistake once with my bro because he's type 2 diabetic. Reading packages told me vegan would kill him. No, I mean, first of all, I agree with that 100%. Yeah, vegan shit is so unhealthy because of all the fakeness, all the preservatives, all the lab-grown bullshit. I remember one time years ago, this has probably been, 7 or so years ago. Remember when Burger King introduced the vegetarian Whopper? Like, it was a Whopper, it was a veggie burger. Out of pure, like, morbid curiosity, I tried it just because I wanted to see what the fuck these, like vegetarians that eat at fast food could possibly get out of it. And if I'm being completely honest, flavor-wise, it did, in fact, for the most part, taste like a regular burger. But the texture was so fucking weird, bro. The texture was disgusting. Like, even if the flavor was almost accurate, how could people put that in their mouth when the texture was so just,
Go Jevity.com/Brett Cooper and use code Brett for 20% off. That is GOGEVITI.com/Brett Cooper. Code Brett for 20% off to start taking control of your health today. Now, back to the story and the fraud that Virginia is obviously trying to enable. Somebody else commented and said, makes any serious audit of an election process nearly impossible. Well, I think that's probably kind of the point. You know, like, let's not count ballots. Let's not verify where our tax dollars are going. It'll be great, guys. And the Republicans are going to be so mad, which is why they're doing it. I mean, in their minds, I'm sure they're thinking, well, there can't be any fraud if we're not tracking anything to begin with, just like we can't have issues with our education system when we are just handing out high school diplomas to non-passing students. And no, that's not something that I am just making up. That is another bill that they are proposing, removing normal standards that are inhibiting students from graduating. And obviously, this is being done to promote more equity so that we can have more graduates. And it's just so ridiculous. Like, rather...
First of all, I agree with Kata there. Brett pretty fine. Brett, I know people will be like, oh, Ben Spear in a wig. Nah, bro. This ain't quite Ben Spear in a wig. Like she's a pretty good looking gal. But on the concept of what she's talking about here, you know, just the equity, getting folks to graduate, she's wrong. Like, so that might be an aspect of it. But in all reality, they want dumb people graduating. They want dumb people graduating because the more dumb people you have out there in society working these menial jobs, the easier it is to create a slave labor class that's easy to control so that when it's time to live in the pods and eat the bugs, they're going to be going out there and they're going to be digging the ditches and they're going to be doing everything the big daddy government tells them to do. Left, right, center, doesn't fucking matter because remember, the uniparty is the issue. That's why they want all these people graduating. We can't have these dumb motherfuckers dropping out. We can't control them and indoctrinate them if they're not in the school to begin with. So yeah, they want to pass as many people as possible and they want to put them in what is effectively state-controlled indoctrination camps because the dumb ones are the easier ones to control.
Than trying to address our failing education system, rather than addressing the fact that tens of thousands of students in every major city are leaving the public schools in favor of private schools and homeschooling and co-ops, rather than addressing what's going on there, let's blame homeschoolers, let's tell parents that homeschooling is actually abusive, and let's make it easier for non-passing students in this failing education system to get diplomas. Doesn't really make sense to me. I'm not going to waste your time showing you each and every piece of proposed legislation, so let's just kind of go through and read this summary and prepare to be mind blown. This is from that same account, Christian Hines. I'm going to reference him.
Holy shit. Editor's note. Yes, this is what the tweet looks like in its entirety. Now, guys, Normally when I see a long tweet, I read it to completion if it's interesting, because a lot of these are very informative. This is one of those few times where I'd be like, I ain't reading all that. Happy for you. Or sorry it happened.
A lot in this episode because he's been reporting on this a lot, but he said, here is what Virginia Democrats have introduced so far. This list is truly insane. Automatic restoration of voting rights for felons after they're released from prison and the mentally handicapped.
All right. Here's the dealio. I actually agree with this one. I do. When you're in prison, obviously you don't have any fucking voting rights. You have forfeited your rights. You have been caged off from society because we don't want you around people no more. I am of the opinion that once you're out of prison, the vast majority, if not all your rights, should be reinstated. That includes gun ownership. Now, you can make the argument like, oh, well, somebody killed somebody before, what's stopping them from doing it again? Well, then they probably shouldn't have been let out to fucking begin with. So, like, this is something that I actually am okay with, but you know good goddamn well they're not treating it as an across-the-board thing. They're not restoring all of your rights. They're not restoring, your right to own a gun and shit like that. It's just the voting rights, and this is purely so they can get these individuals in prison, oftentimes minorities, which already, dominate the left-wing vote, to be able to vote for them again. So that's what this boils down to. This isn't actually, while this is something I agree with in principle, their reasoning for doing it is obviously bullshit.
Allows for votes to be cast electronically through the internet. Public funding of political campaigns at the local level.
What was it? That's what I'm saying. I agree with it in theory, but if you're not going to get a restoration of all your rights, then it's bullshit. Because it's not being done out of the belief in the concept of freedom in the Constitution. It's being done to rig the game.
Abolishes all mandatory minimum sentencing for rape, manslaughter, assaulting a law enforcement officer, possession and the distribution of child pornography, and all repeat violent felonies. Makes it harder for judges to deny bail, even in the cases of things like aggravated assault, armed robbery, and drug trafficking. Gives convicted murderers, rapists, and terrorists a chance to get out of prison early. Drastically reduces the criminal penalty for robbery. Bars prosecutors from mentioning a criminal's prior convictions during the guilt phase of a trial, even if...
So lawyers aren't even going to be able to be like, hey, this dude who's on trial right now for, like, double homicide and stabbing a dog with a screwdriver, yeah, he's actually done this before. He beat his neighbor to death with a shovel and then, like, put the cat in a trash bag and threw it in the river. You're not going to be able to bring that up. This is fucking insane.
It's for the same crime. Reduces the amount of time that the Commonwealth can compel a convicted criminal to pay court fees from 60 years to 10. Taxpayer funding for trans...
How old is this video? Like 2 days ago? 1 day ago. Yeah, this video is a day old.
Gender surgeries. Bans most discretionary state contracting under $10,000 from going to businesses owned by white men.
Wait, what? Bans most discriminatory state contracting under $100K from going to business owned. And allows state agencies to work. So they're going all in. Like, so remember back in like 2016 when all the darkies and whatnot were throwing a fit about systemic racism and whatnot. And we're like, hey, this is bullshit. Systemic racism doesn't exist because biologically it being systemic, it has to be codified within the law. Yes, you can have individual people who are racist, but there's no such thing as systemic racism because the system, there is not a single law on the books that actually institutes racist policies. We can't say systemic racism don't exist anymore. Like by nature, if this law passes, right? If this passes, we will by nature of the law have it on the books that systemic racism does exist and is against white dudes. And it's against white dudes.
Favor of women or minority-owned firms. Abolishes all Confederate-themed license plates. Eliminates the tax-exempt status for all Confederate history groups. Renames Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day. Makes
Gay as fuck.
It illegal to approach within 8 feet of somebody within 40 feet of an abortion clinic. Enshrines a leftist narrative about January 6th and teaches it in public schools.
That might be the most dangerous one. Like of all this shit, because everything else you talked about so far will have immediate effects, right? Will have immediate effects. It's so much more difficult to gauge the damage of long-term effects because they're long-term. If you've got a generation of children growing up being indoctrinated to believe that Jan 6th was some sort of like terrorist insurrection or whatever, And they're being told that over and over for years upon years. It does not matter by the time they're an adult, or even by the time they're in high school or whatever, college, how much proof you show them otherwise, they will stick to that narrative because it's what they were how much shit do you believe nowadays that you were taught in school that don't exist anymore? Like, there are generations of just fucking millennials that think, like, popping your knuckles causes arthritis. That was dispelled years ago. But people still believe it because that's what we were fucking taught in schools.
Allows localities to adopt rent control measures, increases the sales tax in Northern Virginia.
How would this law pass governmentally? Well, you must have been late to the video. Because in the Virginia election, the Democrats won all sides of the election process. They won the state-ran Senate, governor, House, basically the entire judicial system. Like, it was a full blue wave in Virginia. There is effectively no Republican leadership whatsoever. So that's how they would get all this through.
Virginia allows localities to outlaw gas-powered leaf blowers, imposes a new personal property tax on electric-powered lawn vehicles.
You gotta pay a fucking extra tax to mow your goddamn lawn. My grandpa has an electric mower, by the way. I fucking hate that motherfucker. Gas mowers are the way. Electric push mowers, gay as shit. Like, they just don't cut the grass properly. They're so lightweight. It feels like a fucking, like, Fisher-Price toy, okay? I hate his electric mower. That's neither here nor there. The idea you gotta pay an extra tax to mow your goddamn lawn, or you could pay, Jose a little, $5.72 off the record, tax-free, to have him take care of it for you.
Limits the ability to use self-driving or autonomous vehicles. Assault weapons ban. Strips gun rights for anyone convicted of a misdemeanor or hate crime. It makes...
And the attack on the Second Amendment ain't real, guys. Apparently the attack on the Second Amendment ain't real.
It's illegal to shoot a firearm on lot sizes less than 5 acres, even if you own that 5 acres. Shrinks concealed carry, holds firearm manufacturers liable for gun deaths, imposes an 11% sales tax on all firearms and ammunition, imposes a $500 sales tax on firearm suppressors.
And see, this is where I get really conflicted, right? Because at my core, I'm a small government guy. I believe in anything that does not infringe upon your rights, especially as long as you're not infringing on the rights of others. Like, I want as little power from the government as possible. That puts me in a bit of a bind. Because you see shit like this, which is obviously direct violations of our constitutional rights. But they can do it at the state level, technically. At what point do I have to sit back and be like, you know what? No, we need the federal government to come in and bring down the ban hammer on these motherfuckers. And I'm for it. Like, I'm at that point. Oh, you're compromising your principles. Fuck that. Fuck that. It's not a compromise of your principles when there is something that is objectively wrong and there is only one solution. Because you can't vote your way out of this. This is not something you can just vote your way out of, all right? This is, and the way we get caught up in bureaucracy and in these never-ending cycles of administrative bullshit, at some point you just got to have some greater force come in and bring down the fucking ban hammer. And if you want to call that like a compromise of the principles, fuck it, I couldn't care less.
Dramatically raises the physical requirements to operate a firearm store, makes it harder to obtain a concealed carry permit, creates a new taxpayer-funded state propaganda center for the sole purpose of promoting gun control, establishes the State Propaganda Commission to publicize the supposed negative impacts of ICE raids in Virginia, creates a state-mandated playbook on how schools must respond to ICE showing up on their campus, and bans school employees from assisting ICE, unlimited taxpayer-funded home...
Now, what y'all think about that? Ban school employees from assisting ICE. Now, remember, ICE is federal law enforcement. All right? They are federal law enforcement. Have been since 2003, I believe. It could be off by a year or two. I'm pretty sure it's 2003. So we are 23 years into this being just an accepted, sanctioned portion of federal law enforcement. This right here basically makes teachers, which are effectively government employees, because remember, public schools are owned and operated by the government. So you've got a law which, it passed, would codify one government employee actively, not only themselves going against another government-sanctioned law enforcement, but also teaching generations of up-and-coming citizens to do the same thing. This is legal insurrection. Like, by all definitions of the word, this is legal insurrection.
Purchases for government employees, mandates mental health screenings for all public school students between 6th and 12th grade, drastically curtails homeschool and private school independence from the Virginia Department of Education, raises the salary of school board chairs and vice chairs, free public school education for illegal aliens, of course, lets students graduate high school despite failing grades, eliminates nearly all academic benchmarks for college students to continue receiving federal aid, mandates all localities to adopt an environmental justice plan, mandates unconscious racial bias trainings for nurses to retain their license.
I think we about to see the death rate in Virginia skyrocket. It's funny because you would think they would want to keep these motherfuckers alive to keep voting for them. But all this makes it sound like there are gonna be a lot of unqualified motherfuckers doing jobs they ought not be doing, and it's going to lead to a lot of complications, a lot of medical error, which is already the third leading cause of death in the U.S., by the way. Medical error is the third leading cause of death in the U.S. So, you know, when people die, third leading cause of death is, I guess the medical folk just kind of fucked up. And you all wonder why I'm afraid of doctors and shit like that. Like, this is dystopia. Again, legal insurrection. This is legal dystopia.
I'm tired. I just read off so much, I don't even know if we're gonna be able to include all of that in this episode. Like, I kind of feel a little lightheaded after going through all of that. And guys, all of this has happened in mere days. And what is even more egregious on top of all of this is that, yes, there was a blue wave in Virginia. But here's the thing. Abigail Spanberger was hailed by—
I wouldn't even call this a wave, bro. I wouldn't even call this a wave. Like, remember back in them old-timey days when God was like, hey, y'all suck. I'ma flood this bitch. That's kind of what happened here. Like, we're seeing in Virginia this, like, anti-God be like, oh, look at the metaphorical flood. That's what's going down.
By the media and by her own campaign as being the moderate candidate. They went out to voters who were not paying attention, who are not, doom scrolling on X every single day like most of us, and they said, look here, this is a moderate, this is a centrist Democrat, an anti-Mamdani. Yes, that is a headline that was featured on her campaign website from a Wall Street Journal article, her being the anti-Mamdani. And that article talks about how
the only thing that is anti-Mamdani in all this is that she ain't fucking Muslim, I assume.
How she thinks that this, leftist extremism, that it's a distraction, that it's not healthy for the Democrat Party. She is bipartisan. She pushes back on Joe Biden. She is not crazy like the Mamdanis of the world. So people vote her in. They think that they are maybe getting the Democrat equivalent of Glenn Youngkin, who was a more moderate Republican. The Dems take that trifecta of power, and boom, welcome to Cali, Virginia. It honestly is incredibly impressive, the rug that they pulled over the eyes of so many Virginians. And all of this should be like alarm bells going off for Republicans everywhere. And I think that this is going to force people to reckon with very significant ideological questions. It certainly has for me. Democrats, they wield power because they love authority. They aren't shy about that. The politicians, the voters, they want government involvement and intervention in everything. It does not matter if it is overseas or in their bedroom. They are happy having the government intervene. Now, Republican and conservative and libertarian voters, by and large, we want limited government. We do not want the government meddling in our businesses or our home lives, our families. The less legislation, the better in our books. And I think a lot of us, including me, we pride ourselves on being so consistent on that front. And that
What is a centrist? Anti-Mamdani? What are we? I will tell you exactly what we are. We're radicals. And I'm okay with that. We are. By today's modern standards, we are radicals. And it is my fucking job on this platform, when I'm not talking about video games and anime, my other job is to continue to radicalize each and every single one of y'all motherfuckers. Because this can't stand. We are living in what might be the most tumultuous time in American history, and that sounds hyperbolic. Yeah, Leon, we kind of had this whole Civil War thing where the country split in half and they started murdering each other and shit. Yeah, but this is worse. Why is this worse? Because this is being done on the secret, on the hush-hush. You could actually see the direct effects of the Civil War. Motherfuckers, shot and dying. We're going to war. We got armies clashing. This is being done in a clandestine legislative way that will lead to years of indoctrination. And I find that sort of shadowy organization to mold and craft an obviously non-optimal culture, non-American culture, unconstitutional culture to be far worse. So yeah, what are we? We are the fucking radicals. Why are we radical? Oh, we're radical because we want lower taxes? Fine, fuck it. Oh, we're radicals because we don't want people who are illegal coming in and usurping all of our resources, our education, the gas, the food, people living off benefits, people buying goddamn Twinkies with Snap. Yeah, all that is an issue. That made me a radical? Fucking fine. Oh, you're a radical because you don't like seeing literal millions of dollars in Somalian fraud when I believe it's like 87% of the Somalians are legal citizens. Why are they legal citizens? They're legal citizens because they came in and gained legal citizenship through the bullshit laws that were passed, again, by the left. So they shouldn't be here to begin with. The fact they're legal is kind of irrelevant because their legality it's on paper at best. It's on paper. That doesn't mean they share the values. That doesn't mean they share the love of the Constitution. That doesn't mean they share the love of the country. Anything to that effect. All that make you radical. At this point, lower taxes, wanting just to be able to have your Second Amendment right, or even your First fucking Amendment right. Dude, remember, we saw a motherfucker jailed for a meme in 2020. A meme. Jokingly made a meme stating that Democrats are now able to vote by text on November 6th, the day after the elections. Dude was jailed, prison time for it. So yeah, when we're not talking video games, and when we're not talking motherfucking anime and whatnot, it is time to be a fucking radical. Shout out, thank you for the sub, Doge List. It is time to be a fucking radical.
That is important, and that is a good thing. But I think that the question that we are forced to address right now, how does that...
Zrihale says, this is my first time on your channel, not feel closer to a nut. Say, hey, welcome. First time. Wednesday and Thursday, we go hard in politics, and every other day of the week is usually pop culture and shit. But nah, man, they so tied together. Welcome to a first timer. Das Wort. What up, Angelo Machiavelli?
Kind of consistency work out for us in the end when our opponent is the modern left. When we are dealing with literal democratic socialists, people who love the, warmth of collectivism, literal authoritarians, people who pride themselves on that. Now, that same account who posted that apocalyptic rundown of all the proposed bills said, conservatives treat power as inherently illegitimate, while leftists treat power as the mechanism by which reality is made. And we wonder why one side never wins while the other seemingly cannot lose. And this is what so many people want.
I disagree with this. So, conservatives treat power as inherently illegitimate. No, that's not true. Conservatives treat power as illegitimate if they don't win. And to be fair, both sides do that. Leftists treat power as the mechanism by which reality is made. Now, in a way, this is true regardless. Like, power as the mechanism. So, at the end of the day, you've got force doctrine, and the left is really good about pretending that force doctrine doesn't exist while enacting force doctrine. I don't like this oversimplification and this framing of conservatives as like these weak folk that don't like power. Don't forget, under a conservative government, we got the fucking Patriot Act. Clearly, they think of power as legitimate as long as they're the ones with power.
Never wins while the other seemingly cannot lose. And this is what so many people wanted and hoped for Trump to combat. That he would come in and he would wield power in ways that Republicans had been too afraid or unwilling to do because he knows that the threat is so severe. He was in office before, he was able to take time off, he knows what he's fighting against, he was gonna come back and he was gonna do it the right way. And obviously, he has done a lot looking at the last 12 months, especially through those executive orders at the top of his term. But again, if our Congress, if our Republican majority cannot even codify those, then we are back to where we started in a lot of ways. And I think that that is why a lot of Trump voters are getting restless, why they are frustrated, why Trump himself obviously seems very frustrated by the state of the country.
Trump doesn't seem frustrated by the state of the country. Look, guys, I told y'all a million times, while I am a Trump supporter, I'm very, very unhappy with this current administration because I think that there's been some weak sauce. There's been some dubs. But by and large, none of this shit's gone far enough. And why? Because Trump seems tired, bro. He does. He seems fun. Dude, watch his speech at the World Economic Forum. Well, now, to be fair, his speech yesterday, the day before, whatever it was, that was pretty good. That was pretty high energy. I liked it. But you gotta do more than just talk, bro. Talk is cheap. Bro, talk is fucking cheap. I want to see some shit done, and not enough shit being fucking done. I want to see the full force of the federal government coming in and saying, hey, what you're doing is fucking illegal. Shut that shit down.
Other post, that
What
same
up,
user,
Zax?
Christian, said, those
What
who
up,
are
Hypno?
afraid of power will inevitably be ruled by those who are addicted to it. And I kind of talked about the same idea last week when we were talking about James Fishback and the OnlyFans sin tax that he's proposing. And again, we can and should be consistent, but I think you have to merge that consistency, that philosophical consistency, with a healthy dose of reality with the political landscape that we are currently living in. Because
All right, she said something really important there. I'll roll this back. This is what I was saying literally just earlier in this video.
consistency with a and should be
Right here about the philosophical consistency.
consistent, but I think you have to merge that consistency, that philosophical consistency, with a healthy dose of reality with the
You need to merge that philosophical consistency with a healthy dose of reality. That's why I can say shit like, yo, even though I'm a libertarian, we need some federal government to come in and shut this shit down. Because it sounds like a complete opposition to the philosophical consistency that I've held, right? Which is limited government, no government, things of that effect. Well, here's the dealio. Like I was saying on Matt's show last night, that only works. These libertarian utopia principles of small government and whatnot only work if we have a populace that agrees on some pretty basic shit. And right now, we don't have that. And we're not anywhere closer to that. So yeah, I can maintain philosophically consistent about how, you know, theoretically speaking, a libertarian society would be brilliant. But that's only fucking theoretical. When you're looking at the reality, when you're looking at what's going on in Virginia in this instance, when you're looking at what's going on in Minneapolis, when you're looking at what's going on in goddamn New York City, people are so vastly opposed and differentiated to what basic norms should be when it comes to our Constitution, when it comes to shit that we should be just enshrined in the values of our nation. Yeah, no, like, non-aggression libertarian ideology is going to fucking fix that with just, let's vote for freedoms. No, because the left can easily take and twist those freedoms as, well, you need more government to enshrine these freedoms. Like, it is completely and utterly antithetical to the philosophies that myself and other libertarians hold. So if you're a libertarian, right now, you should actually be being like, hey, big daddy government, right-wing government, Republicans, come in and do some shit. We gotta play some good cop, bad cop. Libertarians can be good cop all they want, but you gotta have a bad cop to counteract with the good cop, right? You gotta have that yin yang. Right now, it's time for bad cop, which hypothetically should be the conservatives to come in and do some shit, and they ain't fucking doing it. So you know what? Yeah, at this point, it should be real easy for libertarians and anarchists and frankly people who are just slightly right of center to say, hey, you know what? Let's dispel with the hard philosophy and focus on what the fuck is actually happening.
political landscape that we are currently living in. Because as just one example, we have conservatives, clutching their pearls over whether we should tax something that we almost objectively deem as a net bad on society. Meanwhile, we are watching these libs who got into power 48 hours ago, banning assault weapons, holding gun manufacturers liable for gun deaths, imposing taxes on the purchase of firearms and ammunition, funding transgender surgeries through tax dollars. Within 48 hours, not looking back in the slightest, not wondering if Republicans would do the same thing to them when they got into power. They're probably going, hey, we can do this because the Republicans will do nothing. Now, taking account of my values and
The Republicans should have been doing everything the Democrats were doing and doing it harder. They should have been waging lawfare. They should have been making Democrats shake in their fucking boots, using all the same tactics the left was using and turning it up to 11. And when the people are like, and when the people cry out authoritarianism, the Republicans whisper good. That's what should have been fucking done, but they're pussies.
what I believe, I would prefer that no taxes were raised. I would prefer that none of that we just discussed were taxed. I would prefer that we were not using any of our hard-earned tax dollars for our neighbors' elective medical procedures. But that is simply not the world that we live in, and that is what I personally am really having to think about. So because that's our reality, what are we gonna do about it? Are we gonna sit around and complain? Are we gonna tweet about it? It's funny, I posted something on my Instagram story a couple of days ago, and it was this guy on TikTok, and he was making a joke, and he was like, this is what the Democrats are doing about ICE. And it was like, don't. Stop that. F off. Don't do that. I mocked that, and I put it on my Instagram story, and then a couple of hours later, I was looking at it, and I was like, Republicans kind of do the exact same thing. Sit behind microphones.
Not kind of. They, in fact, they do it fucking worse. Republicans are all fucking talk.
Tweet about it and not codify anything that Trump is trying to do. And I guess the benefit here is that you can argue that we are, consistent, we are fair, we are balanced, maybe more moderate.
That doesn't matter. Man, that's a crazy frame to pause on. But that doesn't matter. I don't give a fuck about consistency if you're consistently not getting results. Like, what's the definition of insanity again? Oh, right, repeating the same thing over and over and expecting different fucking results. And that is exactly what the right wing is doing. It is fucking shameful.
Like the former Governor Youngkin was. But that just results in us getting walked over time and time again. So I guess we have to wonder, is this going to be the wake-up call the Republicans really need?
Nope. No, it's not.
For the midterms. I guess we'll see.
A few weeks ago.
Oh, yep, that answers that. Good video. Good video. Let me drop it in the comments for you guys. Give me one moment here.
All right, so less than a week ago, a Democrat.
Yeah. It's pretty easy. As a libertarian, I'm voting for Trump. Yeah, and I did the exact same thing. Here's the dealio, guys. If you're waiting for Big Daddy Trump or Big Daddy conservatives or whatnot, or the MAGA movement to come in and save everybody, it ain't gonna fucking happen, right? It ain't gonna fucking happen. They'll get their dubs here and there. They'll get some motherfuckers deported, right? They'll do no tax on tips, which is great. Again, I love me some no tax on tips, because again, remember, say it with me, class, taxation is theft. Look, I'm not gonna take the dubs away, but I'm also going to acknowledge that the dubs we've got are fucking weak sauce by comparison to what the left is still pulling, and pulling successfully even when we have a completely Republican-controlled government. Like, dude, at the midterms, they are going to lose. At the midterms, the Republicans are going to lose. It's going to be a drastic loss, mind you. And they would have had 2 years to do some shit, and nothing would have been done. Nothing. And then they're going to be hampered by all the left-wingers that now have controls of various parts of the federal government. Congrats. You had 2 years to bring the boot down, and you failed to do it. Now, one of two reasons why. And maybe it's probably a combination of both. Because they're fucking losers, or because it's the goddamn uniparty. And again, it's probably both. It's a bunch of fucking losers within the uniparty. The wins we've gotten are the shiny rocks found while digging the hole deeper. Bingo, bango, bongo. Couldn't agree more, Grave. Couldn't agree more. Butterframed in gold for a 5-banger. You're distracting me. I torqued the heads without putting the lifters on the motor. I don't know a whole lot about what that means. Like, I understand what most of it means, but I don't know what, like, the lifters are and shit like that. So all that being said, if I distracted you, it means you're listening. And if you're listening, it means you're getting slightly more radicalized. So I do appreciate that. Alright, let's go ahead and play you a clip. This is for you. Shout out. Thank you so much for the 5-banger, homie. I truly appreciate it. Alrighty. Alright, let's see. Let's take him off and do it again. Blade. I don't even know why you're saying Blade. GOP is doing exactly what they want to do. No. Well, yeah, you're right. GOP is doing exactly what they want to do. Fucking nothing. You're correct. Alrighty. Let's move in. Let's move into this. I debated my anti-ICE friend. Let's go.
Chaos says, why aren't they doing activities like this in Texas and Florida? More than 1/3 of the illegal population, instead of cracking down deliberately on left cities. This is vote.
Me and Matt actually had a discussion about this last night. Out the gate, this is a good way to start. Me and Matt had a discussion about this last night. Why aren't they doing activities like this in Texas and Florida? Now, to be fair, I'll say the same thing that I told Matt. They were. Like, during the last summer and fall, there was massive ICE presence in Texas. The thing is, Republicans are fucking terrible at optics. So you had a massive ICE presence in Texas, and shit was getting done. And instead of celebrating it and putting all the good on all the billboards and like trying to build the optics of how awesome it was that you had state and city law enforcement aiding ICE, coming in, making the transition of getting these illegals the fuck out of here, instead of phrasing all that as an absolute win and just putting the optics out there for everybody because shit was going good, they didn't fucking advertise it. So, like, yes, the whole why aren't they doing the activities in Texas? They were, and nobody fucking knows about it.
For intimidation, not an illegal immigration crackdown. They're doing that in Texas. I know for sure. Yeah, they're doing that in Texas, and the Texas is just complying with it.
Right. But most people don't know they're doing it in Texas because the Republicans are so fucking terrible at optics. They're not promoting the W's that are happening in Texas.
And like when people like get arrested in Texas, they put their hands up. So you haven't heard a thing. They're not like throwing shit at ICE as much over here. Yeah, there was a thing out of Austin. Wasn't there a thing out of Austin recently where there was a protester and like he got freaking instantly arrested? Like he instantly like just insta-folded basically. Like when they were arresting him, he just like surrendered and then nothing happened. He didn't die, or there wasn't anyone getting shot. There wasn't like anyone getting, their face broken. Like yeah. ICE is intimidating civilians by killing them unless you are saying they aren't killing civilians. Wait.
Okay. Hold on. Let's break this down. ICE is intimidating civilians by killing them unless you're saying they aren't killing civilians. Just because there's been some civilian deaths doesn't mean they are intimidating the civilians, as in like that is their objective. If civilians are feeling intimidated, that's kind of on them. You shouldn't have motherfuckers be trying to run over ICE agents with their cars. Maybe you won't get fucking shot. It's that simple. Now, if people are feeling intimidated by that, maybe they should be asking the question, yo, why y'all motherfuckers trying to run over ICE agents with your goddamn car? Like, ICE agent shows up in my city, I'm gonna feel a lick of intimidation. Now, one, on account of, but on the other hand, because they ain't gonna do shit to me, because I ain't gonna do shit to them. Don't start nothing, won't be nothing.
Wait, ICE is intimidating civilians? Are we looking at the same thing, Chaos? Like, I'm just so confused. Like, ICE is intimidating civilians by killing them? So do you think that if like none of this stuff happened that made things so much more dangerous for ICE, do you think that they would just shoot people? Like, I'm just confused. Like, where are you getting this from? I'm trying to bring it up. One sec, chat. Yeah, ICE is intimidating civilians by killing them unless you're saying they aren't killing civilians. Nobody's dying anywhere else. It's basically in places where hardcore harassing ICE and making a dangerous situation. Like, if they protested peacefully, none of this would happen. Because ICE is violating people's constitutional rights. How so?
How? Exactly, Leaflit. Yeah, how so? Explain to me how ICE is violating people's constitutional rights.
Oh, you mean illegals? Cass, you mean illegals? Who are you talking about? What constitutional right do you mean? Oxide says, I'm glad we have all these experts that... all of these experts that have extensive experience in high-intensity, high-stress situations. That's kind of what I mean. That's what I've been saying. Is that...
Well, that's not true, Pranapout. It is not only citizens that are covered by the Constitution. Like, let's say that you are a tourist to America. Let's say that you came to America on vacation from Italy. When you are here, you have constitutional protections. You do. Like anybody who is within the country has constitutional protections. Now, that being said, when you want to talk about things like due process and whatnot, due process doesn't just immediately mean you sit in jail, you wait for your trial, you go like the whole nine. Due process is a very broad terminology. The due process for illegals is they get deported. That is still due process. Like, they did the research, they found out they're illegal, they kick them the fuck out. So it is true that everybody on American soil, illegal or not, has constitutional protections. That doesn't mean that they are granted all these same privileges and privileges and constitutional protections are different. Doesn't mean they're granted all the same privileges as citizens.
Like, we're all looking at this situation from the point of view, from the safety of our own homes, where we can stop, pause, freeze frame literally every single thing. When all of this happened in like a couple seconds.
Who the fuck is Leaflit?
To be fair, Chaos tangentially knows the guy, so he's a little pissed. This is such cope. You can see the officer in the gray shirt disarm. Alex, and afterwards another ICE agent mag dumps him and executes him in cold blood.
Yeah, and like, okay, if you think this was an unjustified killing, they're doing an investigation. Like, if you think this is unjustified killing, which to be fair, this one actually might be. I ain't even gonna. This one seems like it might be an unjustified killing. Not even gonna front. But they're doing an investigation. The act of one officer, the act of one officer does not mean you shut the whole fucking thing down. Like, by and large, ICE doing a lot of good work. Frankly, they're not doing enough, in my opinion, but they're doing a lot of good work. You don't let just like again. We've had this onslaught as of late. We've had an onslaught of female teachers fucking they male students, right? Over the last several years, we have seen more and more and more articles about like, yo, we had this 33-year-old teacher fucking her 15-year-old male student, and now she's going to jail and going to prison, and her husband's divorcing her and all this shit. That don't mean you get rid of fucking teachers, right? Like.
There is nothing but explicit tyranny by the state. If you're saying that Alex deserved this, the entire crowd of January 6th deserved death. So I'm just confused. Did we see the same video? The officer in the gray shirt disarms Alex. Afterwards,
the amount of rounds alone was excessive. Again, if it is a justified shooting, then not at all. If it is a justified shooting, in general, then the amount of bullets don't matter. You continue shooting until the threat is confirmed to no longer be a threat. Mag dumps are incredibly common in any sort of law enforcement altercation where deadly force is required.
another ICE agent mag dumps him and executes him in cold blood. Do you think that there's no other plausible explanation, Chaos? Just out of curiosity. Wait, but you read Umineko. I'm so confused. Like, how come you're like dropping all of your, why are you dropping all of your possibility to see alternate truths? Like the alternate possibilities. Why are you dropping it specifically for this scenario? Cornflake, thank you for the gift sub, thank you. Because it's coming from an emotionally charged and biased mindset? That's what I'm asking. It seems to me that you skipped all other possible explanations for it and went specifically for the one that you wanted. That's what it seems like to me. The thing is, here's the thing. This administration is accusing Alex of being an assassin, brandishing a firearm, and going out with the intent to kill officers when there is nothing in the footage that demonstrates this happening. Okay.
Actually, there is. Now, maybe not the brandishing of firearm part, right? Maybe not the brandishing of firearm part. If what we're seeing from reports is that he actually brandished a cell phone. However, the way he was holding the cell phone, pretend that this remote control right here is a gun, or is a cell phone, right? If the reports are true, and again, there needs to be an investigation done. This very well could be an unlawful killing. I'm not denying that one way or the other. But if the report is true, dude has a black cell phone, and he pulls it out like this to record what's going on with the camera facing. Now, if you're an ICE agent, and there's a riot going on, and you see someone pull out a black device like this, it is conceivable to think homie may have just whipped out a blicky. So, as far as him being like an assassin or whatnot, dude was in full paramilitary gear, was affiliated with basically a militia, a paramilitary outfit that is ran by citizens. When you show up to an event like that, to a quote unquote protest, when the protest is against law enforcement in general, yeah, shit might get dicey. It is in the best interest of people to not fucking go to an event like that, and definitely don't go in paramilitary gear with firearms.
But is there anything in the footage that demonstrates that he was executed for no reason other than that they wanted to kill him? I have no doubt that when an event like this happens, that people will immediately...
Donut operator said it was lawful but awful, and again, that might be the case. Like, I don't know, because I think this one can go either way. This is a real gray area in terms of the shooting, right? The execution of Peretti or whatever is a real gray area. Unlike, and again, this is something me and Matt were talking about last night. Unlike in the Renee Good case, we had several vantage points, several viewpoints. We had the body cam footage. It was all in crystal clear quality. Like, it was very obvious that the Renee Good case was a justified shooting. The problem with this one, we ain't got all the info. all the footage we have is grainy, it's out of focus, the quality is terrible. Like, at this point, it is all speculation, which is why I think that an investigation into this one does need to be done. It could end up going either way. Like, maybe it was 100% lawful. And like, operator would say, lawful but awful. I don't know, but let's look at the worst case. Even if it was unlawful, let's not pretend that that's the fucking norm. Let's not pretend we've just had this, like, this rampant onslaught of unlawful killings by ICE. That's just, statistically, that doesn't bear out.
Immediately go towards a partisan view. I agree. But what I'm saying is, can you not see all of the possibilities within what happened? Maybe the gun to his head after he was already disarmed. Okay, Chaos. Can you not see a situation? All right, hold on. So you're telling me that because his gun was disarmed, you can't see any other possible situation in which, like, they would consider him a threat? Even if I were to accept your premise, right? If I were to accept that as truth.
Yeah, Travis Conner says, I believe Sig went off, officers let go of him, then he reaches. Now, again, let's say what he reached for, like some of the reports are saying, was his black cell phone, not a gun. If you had just gotten released from federal law enforcement, and then you pull out a black cell phone like this to record, it is completely, in my opinion, justifiable to have the split-second thought process that could be a firearm. Full stop. And if it's not, it was unfortunate that a motherfucker was killed. But again, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Maybe you shouldn't have been there with a paramilitary crew in a paramilitary outfit with what reports do seem to convey that he did have a firearm. Even if that's not what he pulled out, that he had one. When you as an officer see someone reaching for something, you got some split-second decisions to make. Now, whether it was unfortunate or not is kind of irrelevant.
If I were to accept that as the red truth, does that mean that all of the other blue truths don't exist? That there's no other possibility? Can you see any other action by Alex in the video that demonstrates him
exactly the most you can have?
There's a possibility that he had another weapon. There were people saying that he had a magazine in his hand, that he, like, pulled a magazine. He was still resisting. There's the possibility that the SIG did go off, and then that combined with him resisting made them think he was shooting. There's a lot of different possibilities here that aren't execution. He could have had another weapon. Can be applied to anyone. Yeah, it can be. Yeah, it can be. Listen, I'm not even saying high stress doesn't give you casus belli to execute citizens, especially when you deliberately place yourself in danger. Wait, high stress doesn't. Wait, it wasn't just high stress though. What are you talking about? It wasn't just high stress.
And also, what do you mean when you deliberately place yourself in danger? Dude, this chatter is retarded. This Chaos Shield chatter is retarded. When you deliberately play... They're doing their job. These are law enforcement officers on an operation. They're not deliberately placing themselves in danger. They are there to do their fucking job. The person that deliberately placed themselves in danger was the fucking protester.
It was a person with a gun. It was a person with a gun that was resisting officers. What do you mean? This has nothing to do with it specifically being high stress. That's not the only factor here. Can you send it to me again? Especially when you deliberately place yourself in danger. Wait, what do you mean? Are you talking about ICE deliberately placing themselves in danger? I'm confused. Because couldn't I use that exact same argument the other way around?
No, not only could you use the argument the other way around, it's valid. It's not valid the way that the chatter has proposed it. It is only valid the other way around. What up, R Buffalo?
He didn't deserve anything? You're talking about Renee Good? No.
And the most, yeah, that's why I said protester.
Renee got shot because she hit an officer with a deadly weapon. And I've seen people argue that when he took follow-up...
Oh, wait, he's talking about Renee Good. Renee Good was absolutely justified. What is this chatter talking about? Renee Good was absolutely justified.
Follow-up shots, he had sidestepped the car when he had taken follow-up shots. And if you consider how fast that entire thing happened, once you commit to shooting somebody, it's not like... It's reasonable for the ability to stop at that position is, like, not as easy as you claim it is. There's a lot of things that you can say around that. And also, like, Also, why did you just switch the argument to Renee, like out of nowhere? Like, I'm just confused. It takes longer.
For very obvious reasons. Because when people are on the back foot and when they're losing an argument, they're going to change the parameters of the argument. That way they can try and get some semblance of being the victor or coming out on top, or at the very least, obfuscating. That way they can try and convince you that you were wrong in all the arguments that you were making. Like, it is just pure manipulation. It takes longer to unholster, aim, and fire a weapon than it takes to move his hand out of the way. Okay. A, you are dealing with somebody that possibly has a weapon. Moving their hand out of the way may or may not. Let's say you move their hand out of the way and they've got a weapon. Alright, there's still a weapon in their hand that they can discharge into other ICE officers or civilians, potentially on themselves, whatever it may be. Also, as far as it takes longer to unholster, aim, and fire a weapon, I tend to disagree. Again, as somebody that did extensive marksmanship training during the academy and whatnot, let me tell you, you can do that shit, especially if you practiced, pretty fucking quick.
To unholster, aim, and fire a weapon than it takes to move his hand out of the way. Well, I mean, you're speaking from a position where you're sitting at home and you are looking at the situation you are looking at the situation in relative comfort.
These motherfuckers seen too many movies, dude. These motherfuckers seen too many movies. Thinking you're like, oh, you can shoot them in the hand to knock the gun out of their arm or whatever. Like, these people. Real life ain't fucking Hollywood, alright? This ain't Neo and you're like dodging bullets and shit, okay? You have milliseconds to make a decision that could impact not only your life and not only the life of the individual who may be in the process of attempting to take another's life, yours or otherwise, but you also have a bunch of other civilians around you, which even if they disagree with you, even if they're protesting against you, even if they hate your fucking guts, it is your job to protect and serve them. Like, it doesn't matter. People could be protesting ICE and throwing shit at them and screaming and cursing, and it is your job as an officer to grit your teeth and take it because you're there to protect and serve them. And when one of those dumb motherfuckers potentially whips out a blicky, some accidents may occur, and you got just microseconds to figure out how to dissolve this with minimal casualty.
With the ability to rewind the footage and pause the footage. When the officer is currently in a high-stress environment in which his life could be at stake at any time. But yeah, why did you change this? Why did you change the thing? Like, we weren't talking about Renee.
I also agree that every single citizen deserves the Second Amendment. I don't know if you're arguing against me on this point or not. The argument for the Second Amendment doesn't justify potentially violating the rights of others via an unlawful discharge of that weapon that you legally own via the Second Amendment, which could cause the injunction on other people's rights when that firearm is discharged. Like, it's that simple. You can own a gun. You can't use the gun you own for illegal shit.
We were talking about Alex. Why did you switch it in the middle of the conversation? In the middle of my point. This is feeling like a Paige Chill moment in which he placed himself in front of a lethal weapon deliberately. He put... Oh, sorry. I thought this was the Renee one. So hold on. Just out of curiosity. So you're admitting that it's a lethal weapon then, correct? I just want a confirmation. You're agreeing that it's a lethal weapon then, right? It's non-lethal until it's in someone's hands. Did the person have their hands on the steering wheel, Tazuto? This debate's worse than Hassan. You know, chat, being in the middle of things is agony, to be honest, chat. The truth is, I feel like I'm being pretty reasonable. The things that are happening. I'm not like... You know, I'm not saying like Poggers Renee died, Poggers Alex died. I'm not even saying that. I think I'm being pretty reasonable. And it's like, at no point was it driven in a way that would be dangerous had the officer not deliberately placed himself in harm's way. Can you answer the question, Chaos? Yes or no? According to what you said, is a car a lethal weapon? I'll answer after you answer my question. I just want to verify that you said that. And that's what you mean. No, at the velocity he was hit, not even fast enough to make him drop the cell phone, her vehicle isn't a lethal weapon. If you say that, it's by that logic, literally any object is a lethal weapon.
Yes, exactly. Most objects can be... Dude, you could throw a fucking textbook, a science textbook from your fucking 9th grade physics class at a motherfucker, and you couldn't kill them. Yeah. People found pretty creative ways to end the lives of other motherfuckers. Like, why do you still have murder going on in the UK despite the fact that at this point, even knives are taboo? You still got people dying. Yeah, because any object can be a lethal weapon. Of goddamn course, the car was a lethal weapon. Because, like, even if they're driving real slow, you're talking about it was an SUV, right? It was an SUV, so we're talking, I don't know, what's the weight of an average SUV? I reckon over 1,000 pounds. Weight of average SUV. 2,000 to over 6,000 pounds. So it doesn't matter how fucking slow they were going. If they hit with enough force to knock him over, which could be as low as like 5 miles an hour or something, and then continue to drive, the weight of that vehicle would crush a motherfucker. Yes, that is a deadly weapon. Abso-fucking-lutely.
So do you retract your last point then? Because you said this. What is this about then? Why did you say this? Are you just, is this a concession for this? Like you don't agree with this anymore? At no point was it driven in a way that could be dangerous had the officer not deliberately placed himself in harm's way. Do you think that a car...
That is the job, by the way, of officers. To put themselves in harm's way to protect those that would otherwise be in harm's way. By the way, if I recall, and this was a couple weeks ago, so I could be misremembering, but if I recall, he didn't deliberately put himself in harm's way. Doesn't the video footage show her realigning her vehicle to line up with him? Not vice versa?
Could do great bodily harm at that distance, out of curiosity. You don't think it's possible? Do you think it's possible? Hi, Sir Claire, how's it going? So, Leaflit, what's the formula for a cop to know when a car truly becomes a weapon? I'm getting there. Saw her turning away from...
Here's the formula for when a car becomes a lethal weapon. When it's fucking driving at you. Or the other motherfuckers that you're supposed to be protecting and whatnot. But, like, when it's driving at you.
From him, Tazuto, you're speaking from a position of replay. You're looking back in time from an unstressed position, from your chair at home safe, when you weren't there. Like, you don't understand how fast these things happen. Thank you, Wildly Awesome, by the way, for the Prime. And Ragnar, thank you for the bits. The problem now is allowing the left to survive this administration will lead to them getting power again. And we all know you have no qualm about oppressing normal people. They aren't fellow citizens. They are effectively enemy combatants. Yes. Okay, so you think that, so it is possible. So if you're saying yes, a car can deal great bodily harm, that's actually the standard. That's actually the standard for lethal force. It doesn't have to be lethal. So even if we were to assume that there was no threat of lethal force, the threat of great bodily harm is already enough of a standard to enact lethal force. That's what I said, chat, that I was getting to it. So then it would be then, in that case,
Who the fuck is Leaflit?
tell me where it's the duty of an ICE agent to step out in front of vehicles.
Who the fuck is Leaflit?
I got this.
These people are so fucking stupid, bro.
Chat, just give me a second.
Yes, a rock can be used as a lethal weapon. Here's the funny thing about rocks, right? Now, I ain't too knowledgeable about my history and shit, but I doth recall this famous story. The story of, what were their names? Alright, Cain and Abel. And if I do recall correctly, a rock was kind of the very first lethal weapon. Like in the history of all lethal weapons, a rock was the first.
So according to your logic then, give me a second. I'm trying to find the most effective. I guess the most obvious one might be the most effective here. I'm taking my time because I know Chaos has done like debate stuff before, like formal debate in school. I haven't. So I have to assume all of his possible. There's so many angles I can go at this from. I guess the simple angle here would be Chaos is, does the ICE agent being in front of the car, does that resign him to death? Does that justify running him over? ICE is performing their duties is justice. ICE.
It was a donkey's jawbone. Yeah, okay, yeah. Goliath used a bone, if I recall. My bad.
Deporting people is their function. And that is what, if you want to talk about democracy, you want to talk about things like insurrection. Like, how can you simultaneously claim that January 6th was insurrection and claim that this isn't? Because January 6th has during a transfer of power. What does that have to do with anything? In fact, I could argue right now that that this also deals with power. Or is that going over everyone's head?
Travis Compton says hasn't seen Supernatural. Bro, I guarantee you I've seen more Supernatural than you. Bro, when season 2 was airing, I met Jared Padalecki. I mean, we talking all the way back in like 2007. I met Jared Padalecki and Fred Lane, the guy that does the voice of Yellow Eyes. Jim Beaver, the guy that does the voice of I said the voice. I'm so fucking used to talking about anime. The guy that acts for Yellow Eyes. The guy was the actor for Bobby. I've been watching Supernatural since season 1. I was a early adopter of Supernatural. We used to live in fear of that show being canceled every single season because it didn't get any promotion at all, dude. Most people didn't jump on the Supernatural bandwagon until it hit fucking Netflix. I've been watching that shit since it aired in 2005.
Yeah, Tazato.
It should have ended with season 5, not 10, Butter Framed in Gold. After Eric Kripke left, because Eric Kripke only wanted 5 seasons. He had a story to tell, and that story was told. After season 5, the shit should have been done. Everything after season 5 is fucking fan fiction. Sarah Gamble took over. She's an awful fucking writer. She's the worst type of writer. Likes to kill motherfuckers for the shot value and just the sake of killing them. Like that was like point numero uno when I started thinking maybe women shouldn't be in charge of shit, because she was fucking terrible. But yeah, point is, we're supposed to be talking about ice and whatnot, but yeah, your boy OG Supernatural fan.
Everything goes over my head. Good argument. I would say Steelman to your argument would be that we don't know. Chaos says there are many actions that you can take to resign you to death. So by your logic then, anyone that stands in front of a car for any reason is resigned to death. Is that true? Is that what you're...
At this point, this individual is being obtuse for the sake of being obtuse. They're not making a logical argument. They're throwing out anything they can to try and find a gotcha on Leaflit. Like, that's all this is. There is no coherent or logical argument here. It is purely emotion-based attempts at manipulation. I don't know that I would call it a straw man per se, because I don't see them actually reframing Leaflit's argument. But yeah, this is Chaos Shield is either trolling, is incredibly retarded, probably a bit of both, or flat out doesn't understand how to debate.
You're saying? I'm going somewhere with this.
War Wizard, the reason I was unable to meet Jensen Ackles is because at the time of the convention he was filming My Bloody Valentine.
Who the fuck is Leaflit? Who the fuck is Leaflit?
Hey, Baxter. Thank you so much for the raid. I really appreciate it, man. Thank you. How you doing?
Who the fuck is Leaflit?
Hope you have a good stream. Thank you so much. Wait, who the fuck is Leaflit? Is it Asmon's voice? Yeah, it is. It's literally a clip from Asmon's stream.
Who the fuck is Leaflit?
he literally said that on stream.
Who the fuck is Leaflit? Who the fuck is Leaflit?
Thank Niara for that clip. True. Thank you, Baxter. Again, thank you. Looks like you're dealing with big brains here. Yeah. Well, the thing is if it were like a regular viewer, I probably would have moved on already. But Chaos is like a person that's been my friend for a long time, and I kind of have to answer to him saying I'm a shit person. You know, I feel like I have to defend myself. Again, you deflect. It doesn't matter. It's not deflection. I'm literally responding.
I want to hear Leafit's answer to this. Hopefully she answers it adequately. Where's the duty of ICE to stand in front of vehicles? Because like, if she doesn't, I can give a very easy application of said duty.
To one of your points, right? Like, let's go look here.
Who the fuck is Leaflit?
The reason why I'm not addressing it is because I want to address this point first. I can answer your question later. You're basically presenting two different lines of thought, separate lines of thought, and I do not want to engage with both at the same time. I'm not deflecting. I'm literally...
No, exactly, that's not deflection. That is how you are supposed to handle debate. Now, granted, Chaos Shield here clearly doesn't understand a debate, doesn't understand the rules of engagement, doesn't know how a debate is supposed to go. It's also a little bit different since this is via text and speaking, live and whatnot, as opposed to both people, because there's going to be a delay and whatnot, as opposed to actually doing a sanctioned debate where both people are debating, in real time with one another. But even so, yeah, Leaflet's doing what you should do during a debate, which is address everything point by point instead of jumping around.
talking about what you're talking about, because your claim is that he stood in front of the car, right? Here's the line of logic, Has, okay? Why is the officer putting himself in danger? There are many actions that you can take to resign you to death. If I try, what is this about? What is this about if it's not what I'm talking about? So you're just wrong. I'm not deflecting. I'm literally talking about what you're talking about. You are bringing up this point and this line, but it's a completely different line. I'm arguing with this line right now. You can't, like, if you were to present multiple points for me to argue against when they are both arguable in isolation, why will I want to argue both simultaneously when they could diverge to completely different paths, and it would force us to argue about two things simultaneously when we could only argue about one thing? So I'm going to default back to what I said here and say, does that resign you to death then? If you're equating this to standing in front of a car, then does standing in front of a car equate you? Does that mean that any action after that leads to your death is justified? Is that what you're saying? Because you're equating a person being behind the wheel of a car to a passive disaster action. So while I could have said that while I could have taken the route of telling you that this is a false equivalence, what if I accept your equivalence? Like, you're the one that said this, not me. You claimed this.
Well, I mean, yeah, but this is, look, when you're doing a debate, ceding ground on certain things is not bad at all. Like you should cede ground. When you cede ground on certain points, it actually makes you look better in the debate because it makes you look like the more reasonable one. You can see the point here, you can see the point there, but as long as that gives you the opportunity to take the high ground in other parts where you're actually making your argument, and it will make your argument stronger. I would not cede the ground on this one. If I chopped down a tree and stood in its path as it fell, I wouldn't blame the tree, because you've only got one subject in this portion of the debate. You only got one subject, and also the point of a hypothetical is it needs to be analogous to the situation in which you're comparing it to for the hypothetical. So in this instance, it's not even analogous. You are a single individual that is chopping down a tree. You're making the active decision to then effectively commit suicide by log, and you step in front of the tree. In this instance, you had two parties involved that are in opposition to one another, and one of them's job is by default to put themselves in harm's way by nature of the ideology of serve and protect, which is part of the duty and part of the job of being a law enforcement officer. So these are not analogous. You shouldn't cede this, but even if she does, I don't necessarily know that it's going to make a huge difference.
It's not me, by the way. This isn't what I believe. I'm working through your own mental framework. Cheer up, please. I feel like this is the first real fight I've had in a long time. I didn't really count all of my other debates as actual combat. This feels like it's real. If you admit it, if you accept it, you admit ICE circled her car and put themselves in dangerous positions so they would have...
Yes. Putting yourself in a dangerous position does not justify you being murdered, or even attempt to murder, or attempt bodily harm, if it is part of your job to put yourself in the dangerous position. Let's take ICE out of this, right? Let's use something that actually maps onto this properly. Let's use something else that is a job. Working on oil rigs. Actually, let's do one even better. Working with under ocean, pipe works is an incredibly dangerous job, right? It's one of the most dangerous jobs in the world. There's horror stories of people getting sucked into the pipes, getting stuck in there, drowning, suffocating, starving because they can't get out. It is horrifying stuff. So by nature of doing that job, if you were to die doing so, does it make the death justifiable just because it is part of your job? No, it does not make the death justifiable. Now, there's a risk assessment proposition, like, is the work worth the risk? But if the worst were to happen, that doesn't mean it's justifiable, especially when there's other factors. Maybe your tools were faulty because the individual that was supposed to be checking them didn't do a good job. Maybe the maintenance that's supposed to have been done on the pipe wasn't being properly maintained by somebody else at the job. You've got all these other factors, so you can't just say, yes, it's justifiable because it's a difficult job.
Casus belli to use lethal force. Let's say that's true. Do you then admit then that all protesters who stand in front of ICE vehicles deserve to be run over? Are you saying that we should just kill all of them? Because they stood in front of the car, right? So any protester that stands in front of a car deserves to be run over. Do you agree with that, or do you retreat? You could go so far as to say that they should have just rammed her car when she blocked the road. She was in the way. Please don't gaslight. I'm not gaslighting. I'm trying to see if Chaos's logic is consistent. Because if he thinks that about the ICE agent,
Yeah, but this Chaos idiot says that's entrapment. No. That's not what entrapment means at all. Entrapment doesn't mean literally trapping somebody. Entrapment is accusing somebody or arresting somebody or whatnot of a crime based on false pretenses that are illegally set up by law enforcement. That's what entrapment is. No, literally circling a vehicle that is violating a lawful operation is not entrapment. They see the word entrapment and think that it means like a physical trap. No, entrapment is basically, again, false pretenses planned out in advance unlawfully by law enforcement that lead to an arrest.
then he has to think that about other people too. That's entrapment, no, not in the legal sense, but the moral one. Wait, was that to what I said? I can't tell. If that was
Wait, not in the legal sense, but what the fuck do you mean by the moral one? What entrapment by the moral sense? You're just making shit up. This Chaos Shield person is fucking retarded.
part of your last thing? I don't know what you mean by that. Oh, you said that a while ago. Okay. It would depend on the moral urgency of the situation.
Yes, exactly. Lone Revolver. Governor Whitmer's kidnapping case was entrapment. Brilliant example.
Who the fuck is Leaflit?
It would depend on the moral urgency of the situation, would it not? So what you mean then is that none of this matters? It would depend on the moral urgency of the situation. Can you give an example? Because then so what you said here is not real. It's your back.
Moral urgency is irrelevant. The law is what matters. The law and how the law should be applied to the situation. Moral urgency is some sort of subjective, arbitrary metric that's going to change person to person. That is completely irrelevant.
Tracking on what you said earlier. Okay, we'll wait for this song to finish. It isn't urgent to make an arrest on Renee Good and put themselves in harm's way when they can take her plate and get a warrant. Why? She's right there right now.
Yeah, by this idiot's logic, why stop a bank robbery? Why would the police stop a bank robbery when it's happening if you can just get the license plate of the getaway car and get a warrant later? No, an active crime is happening. Crime prevention is part of the fucking job of law enforcement. Like, this isn't even exclusive to ICE. This is all law enforcement. What the... I'm truly baffled at this dumb motherfucker's perception of law enforcement in general.
I don't get your point.
Like, and I'm curious, because if you flip the script and you just use regular fucking cops or a backwoods down-home sheriff, would they use the same logic, or are they doing this because they're so fucking blinded by their hatred of ICE?
To be honest, she's literally in the act of the crime. So like hold on. So according to your logic, what you're saying is that unless the crime is a deadly force, it shouldn't be immediately enforced.
Well, even if that's this person's logic, the crime was deadly force. So like even if you go by that metric, this is what happened here. That's why this was a open and shut case of a lawful shooting.
Said that she feared for her life. If that's your logic, then can't the cop use the same logic to shoot her? If she's allowed to use deadly force because she feared for her life, why can't the cop? Like, this doesn't even make sense. This is the problem. Is like you guys aren't consistent. Like, what you actually believe is not consistent. That's the problem. It's only based on who the person is. And then like when I turn it around and I use your exact same logic against people on your own side, you immediately backtrack all the time. I would say, listen, if you flip this, okay? If you flip this and if we flip the situation around, then I would say the same thing.
Not only that, again, these people have no internal logic. That is purely partisan politics. Because if you flip this script, right? If you flip this script and you had some crazed MAGA individual who's like super anti-abortion, and there's cops outside an abortion clinic that he wants to protest, and he attempts to drive into the officer wearing his fucking Make America Great Again hat, and the officer discharges. You know for goddamn certain this chaos shield would be like, no, justifiable shooting. Guy shouldn't have been trying to wear his MAGA hat driving into an anti-abortion protest into a cop. Like, you know absolutely he would take the cop's side in this. There is not only is there a lack of consistency amongst the left, the lack of consistency is intentional, and it is purely for the benefit of partisan politics.
If a right-wing person tried to run over an officer, and the officer shot them, I would say the same thing. Now, would I take it so far? You think ICE has the authority to...
You say you don't believe it's purely partisan. I believe their values drive emotion rather than logic. That's why they're so inconsistent. Right, but that stems from the partisan aspect. They have been brainwashed via this partisan ideology that has led them to have to jump through all these mental loopholes to come up with their worldview, which leads to the inconsistency. Like the partisan aspect is due to emotional manipulation, which then leads to the logical inconsistencies.
Surround people. ICE has the authority to arrest people that are impeding in their investigations. Because, not all federal agents are ICE, but all ICE are federal agents. Because of that, ICE has any authority that federal agents do to arrest people that are impeding in their duties. They actually do have powers to prevent people from breaking the law.
Chaos, and this is where Chaos Shield loses the debate. Full stop, loses the debate. I'm not interested in the law. I'm interested in the moral argument. Well, for one, there has been no groundwork laid for why you believe that this would even be morally incorrect. You have not given a moral framework for your argument beyond my preferences. I don't like that this happened. You actually need some sort of objective moral framework to even start with. But discounting that you didn't do that properly, I'm interested in the moral argument, is irrelevant because this is an argument of legality. Because the question is, was it a lawful shooting? Lawfulness entails legality. It is that laws can be immoral. Okay, they can, but that, again, that's irrelevant because the question is, was it a lawful shooting? Not was it a moral shooting? Yeah, where are the morals based? You haven't even made a moral argument to begin with. We don't even know the premise, the foundation of your morals. So you can't make a moral argument in a debate when you've given, you can, but that's a surefire way to lose.
Not interested in the law, you're interested in the moral argument. The moral argument of what? What is their moral authority to arrest people? The moral authority is that they're upholding the law, which was democratically agreed on. Stop. Okay. Stop. Okay. You're already deflecting. Okay.
That's not deflecting. That is actually a brilliant answer. Was the moral authority to do so? Well, the moral authority is to uphold the law that was democratically agreed upon by the populace. That is a brilliant argument for moral authority if they're going to use if they're going to use that as the baseline. Absolutely. How is that deflecting? He asked what the moral authority is, and she said because this was the democratically agreed upon will of the populace, which means that would be the majority populace agreed moral standpoint. The idea that he would call this deflecting is this is fucking is gaslighting the right word? Would this be gaslighting?
All right, go ahead. Explain it better. What do you mean you're interested in the moral argument? What part?
Who the fuck is Leaflit?
No, I'm trying to be in good faith. If you're saying I'm deflecting, then tell me what you want me to answer specifically. Do you think ICE has the authority to surround people, bark conflicting orders, put themselves in the most dangerous position possible, and then if they rightfully panic or do anything fundamentally human? See, dude, this question, it has so much shit baked into it. Like what the fuck is this? Like, fundamentally human? Like,
yeah, she is absolutely right to be calling out these subjective arbitrary terms that don't do anything aside from, again, make an emotional argument It's set dressing, right? It's just flowery words to sound morally superior. There is no coherent argument in this whatsoever.
What? What does that even mean? Like, what?
I think we're clipping this segment into a video. More people need to see this. What the fuck?
What does this mean? Like, you're just saying shit, bro. Why are they accelerating the situation? Why do they need to speedrun the arrest? Because
it is not speedrunning an arrest. Laws were broken. Arrest must be done. That is how fucking arrests work. Now, it probably would have just been an arrest had the dumb sumbitch not tried to drive her fucking car into a law enforcement officer.
the crime is occurring right in front of them. The crime is occurring right in front of them, and it is impeding on their duties. Also, it's possible they wanted to arrest her for a while now. It's possible she was involved in other things. I don't know. It doesn't matter. And when you mean speed run the arrest, you mean they walked up to her car and said, "Get out of the car"? That's pretty basic. What is the police supposed to do? How much slower could they have done it? They got out.
Guys, as somebody who has done both the arresting and been on the other side of being arrested, let me tell you, this is a very normal procedure, people saying to get out of the fucking car. Like, what the fuck does this dude want?
The car, they walked up to her, they said, "Get out of the car. You're under arrest." And then she tried to run one of them over. Like, what? What are you talking about? I didn't know you typed so slow, Chaos. You know this song classically? It is kind of an old one, yeah. The issue really is that it's like I said, you guys don't have any consistent, like what you believe is not consistent. Like, there's no way you would.
Correct. You want to arrest real quick. Either you get cut loose or go to jail. Who wants to sit there handcuffed to... Exactly. And let me tell you, anytime an arrest has occurred in my vicinity, again, be it me doing the arresting or me being the one being arrested, that shit's always been pretty fucking quick. Like, you want expeditiousness, right? You want things to be pretty fucking simple. KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. The least amount of bureaucracy will always be the most amount of efficiency.
Think this for any other law. Like, there's no way you'd think this for any other law. Like I don't understand where this is coming from. It's like, because it's ICE enforcement, all of a sudden there's like all of these moral hurdles that are thrown in the way, that like it has to be done in a very specific, like ultra clean way because of that. Like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, where did this come from? Like, you wouldn't say that about someone stealing something from a store. You wouldn't be like, well, he's just stealing something from a store. Like, well, you know,
yeah, well, people have the right to a speedy trial. That's true. But again, the U.S. didn't invent bureaucracy, but we sure as fuck perfected it, Zax.
just let him get away with it and then like get him later. Like, what? What are we talking about here? Like, none of this is consistent. Just saw today that the 8th Circuit of Court of Appeals rules in favor of Trump allowing ICE agents to arrest, detain, pepper spray, or retaliate against violent ICE rioters in Minneapolis without probable cause. Sorry, guys, I had to take that argument because he told me I was a bad person. He said I was a disgusting person, so I had to take this argument. I totally would say that if officers had the means to already identify the individual, but I digress. Normally, when an officer makes an arrest in urgency, they do so as a result of pre-existing danger. For example, a drunk driver presents a greater danger to other motorists if they aren't arrested. So what you're saying is that if there's a criminal who does something, they should let them go and then instigate a second. But couldn't that be more dangerous? Because
not yes. As, hey, I know you just robbed this liquor store. Give me your name and information, and we're going to let you go. And then a few days later, we're going to send some officers to your house, which hopefully you'll be at. Hopefully you won't be armed. Hopefully you'll comply then. Or again, we'll waste precious manpower and resources and taxpayer money to fund a manhunt if you're not at that house. And then we send more officers to your mom's house, to your baby mama's house, to your friend's house, where, again, people could be armed and dangerous, where you might not be alone, where you might have multiple other individuals all waiting, in the wait for, all with weapons and whatnot, to blow the 2 cops away we send for the follow-up, like, this logic, I shouldn't call it logic, because it's the antithesis to logic. This is pure mental retardation.
Now you're involving like a house that has probably people in it or other situations. What's the difference in danger? Yeah, like right now they know where the person is and they have ID on their actual person. Whereas in another scenario, they wouldn't have they wouldn't, first off, they wouldn't have violence of action in order to like immediately subdue them. And in the other cases, we don't know if they would take defensive measures. So I don't even know if I agree with your premise in the first place, to be honest. I think it's a flawed premise.
Yeah, that was an excellent video. That was an excellent video. I'll drop it in the chat for you guys. Give a like, give a sub if you haven't already. But that was, again, people like this are real. They exist. There are people out there that for whatever reason believe that we can just let criminals go unapprehended and we can just let them do them, and that all the idea of law enforcement is inherently evil. Now again, I'm a libertarian dude. I'm not exactly a fan of cops. I think that they are dogs of the state and they'll do whatever the state tells them. Hey, you're not wearing your mask and you've got your business open during COVID, time to get arrested, buddy. I'm all for privatized police, again, and cap that I am. But that doesn't alter the fact that there needs to be some concept of law and order. There needs to be something that, that works. And you've got people out here that actively advocate against that, and they aren't just online LARPers. It's fucking insane. But we've been going for almost 2 hours. It's been all hard politics all the time. So let's do some palate cleansers, right? Let's do some palate cleansers. Let's move on to gaming. Before we do, shout out to Xavier, member for 16 months. Doesn't even say anything, just drops his dick. Is like, yo, what up? I've been here for 16 months. Shout out. Shout out. Alrighty, we got Say No to Next Gen. Now, Scott Noir is an interesting character. Dude's kind of a bitch-made beta male. But he also does have a lot of really good points. So let's see what this is all about. Say No to Next Gen.
Just say no to next gen. We are currently at the point where normally we would usually be talking about next generation consoles, but it just does not feel.
Are we really? Hold on, are we really? There's no way. When did the PS5 come out? It's been almost 6 years. It's been almost 6 years. Holy shit. How has it been almost 6 years and that bitch ain't got no games still? Like, how has it been 6 years and all that bitch got to opt for his Code Violet? He's right, we would almost be talking about next-gen systems at this point. Dude, I knew that this generation's consoles have been dog shit and irrelevant. I didn't realize so much time had gone by that we're already on the precipice of when we would normally be talking about next gen. Oh my fuck, bro.
Feel warranted at this point. And that could be for numerous different reasons. I mean, let's go back through the history of video game generations. A concept that I think is only really known by schmucks like us. I've talked to many of my friends who just aren't really that interested in like following video games like I do, and they're generally like, I didn't even know there were such a thing as video game generations. So to be
what? Maybe it's because I surround myself with gamers, but like, I've never heard of people not understanding that. Like, even parents know the difference. It's like, oh, the Xbox 360 was the old thing, and now my kid wants the new thing. What's it called? The Xbox One? Like, even if you don't know what's called a generation, you understand the concept that we get new, upgraded versions of consoles.
Honest, I'm not really sure if this mindset really applies to the general consumer. I think the general consumer, when they see a PlayStation 6, they'll be like, oh gosh, it's a PlayStation 6, I want that. But the
yeah, I would say that he's correct. Like, the general consumer, now, it's easier with PlayStation because they're numbered. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Very easy to wrap your head around the concept of console generations when you don't use dumbass naming conventions like Xbox 360. Okay, that makes sense. Xbox One. It's a little odd. Xbox Series S. What the fuck? Like,
general sentiment I see many have online, and one that I do share as well, is this feeling that the current generation just hasn't really even gotten started yet. Which, like I said,
okay, we 6 years in, they're losers. It's not even that it's not gotten started. It's that when the gun fired for the race to begin, these motherfuckers were passed out from a night of drinking in the goddamn locker room.
agree with, but it's also like, on paper, you know, it's kind of hard to argue that sometimes. Because to be honest, at the very least, the PlayStation 5 generation is kind of going pretty similarly to how the PlayStation 4 generation went. A lot of people look back at the PS4 and go, wow, oh my god, so many games that generation. And yes, but in the first...
The PlayStation 4 had more games in its first 2 years than the PlayStation 5 has ever.
First half of that console's lifespan. Like, I almost feel like some people kind of forget the PS4's launch lineup wasn't anything to really write home about. In fact, in many ways, I would say the Xbox One's launch lineup was better than the PS4's. I'd argue the PS4 didn't really hit its stride until like 2016 or so. Before that, a lot of the stuff that was kind of releasing was just a lot of re-releases and remasters and...
All right, to be fair, I'll give him credit for that. That's true.
Cross-gen titles. But I think around that 2016 mark, not only were we getting a lot of good exclusives on the PS4 and also the Xbox One, but also just a lot of like good games in general. It kind of felt like that generation fully started to like, all right, things are finally off to the races. You know, we got Uncharted 4, Ratchet and Clank, Horizon Zero Dawn in 2017. Now, even The Last Guardian finally released. And honestly, around 2016,
and nobody fucking cared.
That's when I think we started to finally shift fully away from cross-gen titles that were also releasing on Xbox 360 and PS3. You know, before then, in 2015, 2014, we had some incredible games like Metal Gear Solid 5, Rise of the Tomb Raider, Wolfenstein, Dragon Age. But of course, they also released on the previous generations, which I don't necessarily think is like this massive point against them or anything. But, you know, at the same time, when I'm playing a cross-gen game, it is kind of on my mind that what I'm playing is not necessarily like, oh yeah, this is really using this brand new console that I bought. But I'd say around the 2016 mark, I'd honestly say when we saw like Doom release and then onward, I think a lot of the
which does hold up, by the way. I tried replaying Doom 2016 a few months ago, and I messaged Hypno directly about it. I was like, yo, this game kind of sucks. Like, dude, Doom 2016 was fucking awesome when it came out. I tried replaying it a few months ago. I got like 2-3 levels in. I was bored out of my fucking skull, dude. It just does not... Now, Doom Eternal is still good. Doom Eternal is a step up in every way, shape, or form. Doom 2016 don't hold up.
Plats that we're hitting, we're like, all right, now we're finally in just the 8th generation territory now. So I'd say we had about 3 years of growing pains, I guess you would call them, for the 8th generation of consoles there, which is pretty lengthy, all things considered. You know, you look back to the 7th generation with the Xbox 360 and PS3, and yeah, so the Xbox 360 launched in 2005, PS3 in 2006. We were still getting games on the PS2 for years to come. Now we got FIFA 14.
So yeah, I'm pretty sure they kept putting out... I think they kept putting out PlayStation 2 games in like 2014 or something.
On the fucking thing. But I think that was a lot more indicative of just to come. Now we got FIFA 14.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, FIFA 14, I believe, was the very last game for the PS2, which was 2014.
I think that was a lot more indicative of just how well the PS2 sold and the fact that the Wii was a part of the 7th generation and shared kind of a similar technical prowess to the PS2. That's why you saw during the 7th generation a lot of Wii and PS2 multi-plat games. But by comparison, there really wasn't any original Xbox or GameCube games releasing after their successors launched. Like maybe for like a year there, but that was kind of it. So the PS2 getting support for as long as it did was more of kind of just like a special situation. The 8th generation
okay, bros, the thing is possible we'll be seeing PS5 games for another 3 years. I don't understand how you could say that. PS5 doesn't have games now.
kind of normalized a much longer than usual cross-gen period where the previous generation was being supported well into the next generation. And then we saw that even harder with the 9th generation with the PS5 and Xbox Series X. Oh, that was even a big point when Microsoft was prepping the Xbox Series X launch in 2020. They were specifically talking how this generation is kind of different, how they're not really looking at this as a generation. Rather, this is kind of a continuation of the Xbox One, I guess. And for a while there, the Xbox Series X didn't really ever have true exclusives. Like basically every game Microsoft was releasing for the thing was cross-compatible with the Xbox One line of consoles. And I think this has always been kind of an interesting debate to have because on one hand, this is nice for the consumer because you're not necessarily being told like, hey, you need to upgrade to this brand new console.
Yeah, but it's not nice for the consumer. Like, I get he said on the one hand, so he's going to have another point here, but I'm just going to reject this premise that it's nice for the consumer to begin with, because the constraints on development when you're making these games, the constraints on creativity, the constraints on originality, it's all so mind-numbingly simple that, look, yeah, it's nice that I don't have to buy the next $600-700 console or whatever, but by comparison, then why'd you fucking release it? What's the point of it even existing? Like, I just don't think that is good for the consumer. And even if you can make the argument that it's good for the consumer from a financial perspective, it's terrible for the consumer when it comes to the quality aspect. Like, hey, quantity or quality, pick one. And they chose quantity. We don't see innovation the way we saw from like PS1 to PS2 to PS3 or SNES to Nintendo 64 to GameCube.
Like if you have an Xbox One, you can play all these major games releasing, at least for the time being, on that console instead of having to shell out $500 for a brand new one. At the same time, like what incentive do I have buying the brand new piece of hardware? And the mindset that, if a game is cross-gen, that's not gonna hold back the next gen releases or anything.
See, yeah, he's made. I think that negative far outweighs the positive, which is why the positive isn't really a positive for consumers.
I think is stupid. Now, I'm no game developer. I don't know shit about how any of that works. But I think it's only logical to know that, like, yeah, if you're creating a game and you have to keep in mind that this game needs to run on 10-year-old hardware, you're not going to fully design the game to take full advantage of this brand new hardware. Like, yeah, you're going to be able to do some nice things with the new hardware, graphically and technically speaking, but no, you need to always keep in mind this game needs to be able to run on ass-old hardware. And, like, I feel like every company has said this to an extent. Like, I know somebody who worked on God of War Ragnarok said that, oh, the game was never restricted by the PS4 hardware.
I call bullshit. And now you may have made the argument that, yeah, it wasn't restricted by the PS4 hardware. It was restricted by all the morons in the dev team that were DEI hires that don't know how to make an actual fucking game. But that's neither here nor there.
And it's like, that might be true. And I feel like they are telling the truth there. They are literally just saying, like, what we wanted to do, like, we were able to do on PS4 and PS5. But it's also like, yeah, this is a sequel to a PS4 game. I just feel like you can't deny this giant cross-gen period definitely limited or at least heavily postponed us seeing what the PS5 could really do. Because for the most part, the PS5 has been a very good graphical experience in my opinion, but when I truly put it side by side with PS4 games, it's not like this massive difference.
And yeah, look, graphics have plateaued, dude. Graphics have plateaued. I could not give a fuck less about... In fact, I think graphics plateaued. You could say when the PS4 era, when the 7th gen hit. Because, like, the upgrade from PS3 to PS4 was kind of irrelevant to me. Like, most of the games that came out, yeah, they might have looked better. But that ceased to be a selling point. Like, between the PS2 and PS3, like, PS1 to PS2 was a massive jump. PS2 to PS3, not as massive, but still notably better. By the time we get to PS4, it's like, okay, it's marginally better. Like, I can see how this is better than PS3. Enough to spend all that money? Not really. I just didn't see, I don't see a relevant reason. I guess I'll just never understand people to give a fuck about graphics. Like, obviously, now I think art design and art direction is very important. But you can have brilliant art design that's very cartoony and whatnot and still have good graphics because you've got, you know, better fidelity and things to that effect. Graphics are just, it's irrelevant. I was playing Flesh Made Fear last night. Flesh Made Fear is, by design, supposed to look like a PS1 game. That's fine. It controls like a modern game. Now it's got tank controls, which I fucking love. It controls like a modern game made with tank controls would be. Visually, I wouldn't want it to look like a modern game. It's, the whole niche of the game is to reinvigorate the love for the classic PS1 era of survival horror. So, like, yeah, I don't know, graphics, unless it's a game that is 100% based on realism, which most of those games aren't very good anyway, I don't give a fuck about graphics, and I don't know why people do.
10th generation has felt like a smoother, faster version of the previous one. But here's the thing. I think that's good enough. I have no problem with that because even looking back at certain PS4 games, if I look back at Uncharted 4, if I look back at The Last of Us Part 2, Ghost of Tsushima, Final Fantasy...
Yo, we got Zareel here for a 5-banger. I remember the 90s. That was a wild... Dude, exactly. Exactly. We saw the greatest graphical changes in the 90s and into the early 2000s. Like, again, the Super Nintendo into the Nintendo 64 was just... And then, the Nintendo 64 to the GameCube? Bro, I get that was, you know, like 2001 or whatever, so it's not really the 90s anymore, but the point is, from, like, 92 to, like, 2001, 2002, the graphical leaps were insane. The idea, like, the graphical leaps did make the consoles worth it, because there was shit that just would not have been possible unless, like, Resident Evil 4, one of the greatest games of all time. That game would not work on the Nintendo 64. You want to know why? Because they got an iPhone version. And what was the iPhone version? Basically a glorified Nintendo 64 version. And it's dog shit. Yeah, the graphical leaps back then were actually worth the money. Nowadays, I just don't fucking care. That being said, we need to give you a clip. Shout out. Thank you for the 5-banger. Let's play you a clip. Let's go with this one right here.
Call it whatever, but if I made $1 for each time I made a racist joke, I would actually have $0. 'Cause I'm not joking.
Based? Hello?
Shout out. Thank you for the 5-banger, dude. Truly appreciate it.
Fantasy VII Remake. All these games still look amazing. And yeah, the PS5 versions of all of these games run better. The PS4 versions pretty much all ran at like 30 frames per second. And some of these games, like Final Fantasy VII Remake and Ghost of Tsushima, did get sequels on PS5 that looked and ran even better. I think my point is, when I look at all of these games, whether they're the originals that started on PS4, the PS5 re-releases, remasters of those PS4 games, or the PS5 sequels to those PS4 games, I think...
Yeah, but let's be real. The re-releases that come out on PS5 or Xbox Series X or what, it's just to pad the library. That's all it is. It's just to pad the library. Because if you have a PS5 and you're not like 8, odds are you had the PS4. And if you had the PS4, odds are you had these games because they were massive, you know, heavy-hitting, well-selling games. So if you already had the game and then you get the PS5 and the PS5's library is just a padded fucking library of re-releases, you don't even fucking need the game again.
Just start to think, like, what do we really need?
And yeah, Final Fantasy VII Remake visually is stunning. It's too bad it's a dog shit fucking game and an ass remake of one of the GOATs.
Brand new hardware? And I think the release of the PS5 Pro really kind of made everybody start questioning that, because the PS5 didn't necessarily feel like it was struggling in most cases. Where some games, oh, you have to choose between performance or fidelity mode if you want to do 60 frames per second or you want to do 4K visuals. And that's kind of a situation where it's like, okay, I guess. Like, yeah, PS5 Pro eliminates having to choose between performance or fidelity mode in a lot of cases. And I think my thing is like, yeah, maybe I need a crazy ass TV to be able to see a lot of the differences. I think the PS5 Pro is overkill in many instances. But
yeah, again, that's another thing. Having like just because your hardware can do it doesn't mean that your TV like I'm gonna be real. Since I play everything on PC, I use 2 old ass TVs. Like they're smart TVs, but they're like 10-year-old smart TVs, right? I'm not getting no fucking 4K, and that's fine. I don't really need it. Like, again, when I'm playing these games, there's nothing that would incentivize me to buy a whole ass new 4K TV or whatever to get like the best visual quality out of this game. It just I don't see an incentive for that. Why should I drop several $100s? Because the sweat on Barrett's gonna glisten a little bit more. That's irrelevant to me.
even when I see where it kind of succeeds, like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, like runs really well and looks really good on the PS5 Pro. All right, I'll concede that. The normal PS5 version of that game notoriously had a really rough-looking performance mode. Like, yeah, you get 60 frames per second, but it looks like ass. So even when I wouldn't recommend a PS5 Pro to most consumers, I will at least acknowledge that, like, yeah, like across the board, you get the best running and best looking version.
Sir Lordy says his frame rate over fidelity, period. Here's my hot take. Here's my hot take. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with this. If it's a single player game, I don't even care about frame rate. Dude, I'll be real. Yeah, I get people bitching about 30 FPS and whatnot. 60 FPS should be standard. But, like, even 30 is playable if it's a single player game. It doesn't hamper the mechanics or anything like that, by and large. I'm pretty sure, wasn't the PS2 30 frames per second? PS2 FPS rate. Oh, wait, no, it was. Okay, it was 60 frames per second. My bad. So, yeah, 60 can be the standard, right? 60 can be the standard. That's fine. But, like, all in all, now, if it's an online game, obviously it's different. If it's an online game, obviously different. You want max frames per second because you're playing online. You're playing with other people. There's stakes and what. But if it's a single-player game, I truly don't even care all that much. We got Zexrel, or Xrahel, sorry if I'm butchering that, for another 5-banger. It went from Can You Run Crisis to... What an OG reference. Can You Run Crisis to Can I 60 Frames? Based. Let's get y'all another clip.
Name one word that starts with G pronounced like J. Gentrification. Shoot, should have thought of that. I was just in San Francisco.
Shout out, thank you to the 5-banger. I'm sure many of you could, because Xrel, I think it was you or someone earlier said it was your first time in my stream. Your boy a bit of a Sonic fan. Shout out, thanks for the 5-banger.
Of these games on console, okay. But then I have to
play your games on a 27-inch monitor at 1440p. Save thousands of dollars. You can thank me later. What's the average cost of a 27-inch monitor? Now, mind you, one of the reasons I use, like, so my TV that I use for monitors are, say, probably 36 inches, something like that. 36. Maybe they're even 27 inches. I don't know. In fact, my TV might be 27 inches. I like somewhat larger screens because I don't have the greatest eyesight. You know, I wear contacts, and even then, my contacts aren't quite up to snuff. But yeah, no, I don't know how much that costs. I've had these TVs for years, so I don't know the cost. But no, shout out. What up, ABF?
Ask. Now what? What do we truly need in video games moving forward? Why do we need to spend another $500, $600, $700 for the next piece of hardware to play the next generation of video games? What could these...
You say 42. Now the TV that I like watch TV on and shit, the one that's in my bedroom and the one that's like mounted on my wall in the living room and whatnot, those are bigger screens. Those are like 42 to 56 inches or whatever. But not what I'm using on my PC.
These video games possibly do or look like to warrant spending that amount of money and leaving this whole console generation in the dust. And don't get it twisted. These companies, they want to do a new generation. It's not about if it's completely warranted or not. Like, literally, if Sony puts out a PlayStation 6, that's millions of units sold and hundreds of millions, billions in revenue right there. More games get sold. The brand gets like a huge spike in popularity and word of mouth again, all of that. It definitely benefits them in the short term to move on and to do a new generation of consoles. However, I do kind of worry that moving on to a next-gen console when it doesn't feel really warranted just makes it a lot harder to be passionate about what
he is exactly correct. Like, the apathy is set in not just because of the lack of games on current consoles, and technically you can apply this to PC if we're talking about AAA games. You can apply this same thing to PC if we're talking AAA games. It doesn't matter if you had a like massive library on these consoles and on PC when it comes to AAA games, because it goes back to a quality over quantity argument. Even if they gave us quantity, there is no indication whatsoever that the quality would be better or improved. In fact, it would likely be worse given the state that modern games release in nowadays. So yeah, the idea like PS5 has no games, which is a meme, but it's funny because it's true, sort of meme. Even if it had a bunch of games, it would just be PS5 has no good games. Well, then why would anyone want a PS6? Because the apathy is set into like, oh great, we're gonna get more mid to bad games with like 2% graphical increase. Like,
what's going on in the game industry, which is something that I've seen happen to a lot of people and something that I felt a bit myself. Like in the recent year or so, I haven't really given a fuck what goes on with the PS5 and specifically the Xbox Series X. I couldn't care fucking less about that thing. That doesn't mean I don't play my PS5. I've been playing Ghost of Yotei and I love Ghost of Yotei. I really enjoy Mafia: The Old Country. I am definitely interested in
Hold on. Let's roll this back.
Xbox Series X. I couldn't care fucking less about that thing. That doesn't mean I don't play my PS5. I've been playing Ghost of Yotei and I love Ghost of Yotei.
I wish I had the beta mail clip, bro. I wish I had the beta mail clip.
I really enjoy Mafia: The Old Country.
Nobody enjoyed Mafia: The Old Country.
I'm definitely interested in finally giving Claire Obscure Expedition.
He's glazing Yotei and Mafia, but hasn't played Ghost of Yotei. Bro, you lost all credibility.
33 a shot. But like when it comes to watching the state of plays, I'm pretty fucking spotty with those things, man. I don't give a fuck half the time. So if in the next year they announce a PlayStation 6 and it's going to be the same old song and dance as before, but now things are going to be even worse because if games are already taking forever to release on PS5, you know for a fact they're going to take fucking even longer for the PS6.
Yeah, but look, that is due to incompetent devs. That's not just because, like, oh, the hardware is so advanced, it's so difficult to... No, it's because of fucking incompetent devs. Like how long was Expedition 33 in production? Hold on, let's... How long was Expedition 33 in development? Okay, 5 to 6 years? Alright, okay, that was actually longer than I thought, to be fair. I guess it was longer than I thought. It's still technically an indie game, right? Still technically an indie game. How long was Resident Evil 4 Remake in development? 4 to 5 years? Alright, so that was less, right? That was less. How long was Battlefield 6 in development? Approximately 4 years. Yeah, like, a lot of this to me just seems like incompetency. Or incompetence, I mean. Fuck incompetency. Incompetence. Because if we got a game, a console that's been out for, we're on 6 years now. If you had talented devs, they should have been able to be working with that hardware and getting this shit out 2 to 3 year turnaround time. 2 to 3 year turnaround time. This is absolutely an incompetency issue. I cannot come up with any other explanation, because when you look at you know, again, let's see. Let's go back to the GameCube era. How long was Resident Evil 1 Remake in development? 14 fucking months. This is now, the Resident Evil 1 Remake was a brand new game built from the ground up, right? This isn't just a port of Resident Evil 1 that they got to run. It was a brand new game built from the ground up. 14 months. Let's do Resident Evil 4, which was also on the GameCube. Oh, no, not remake. Okay, now that was 5 to 6 years. Okay, fair enough. Five. Well, actually, yeah, but it went through multiple restarts. The Resident Evil 4 might be a bad example because it got scrapped and redone like 2 or 3 times. So let's do another. Let's do Halo. Let's just do the original Halo. Approximately 4 years. And that was on brand new hardware. The bigger the team, the more trouble. Facts. Shout out. Thank you for the two-banger, dude. Facts.
So then we're going to have another console with even bigger gaps between releases. And yeah, like, I'll get the next PlayStation. I'll always get the next PlayStation. But I think what's starting to just kind of, like, fade away is this overall passion for everything going on with these console brands. Which, to an extent, I feel like is an unhealthy parasocial relationship with plastic. But I just kind of feel like that kind of love and passion about PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo is what keeps this kind of subset of being a fan of video games so engaging. I look back to the PS4 era and when Sony did the PlayStation experiences, which was pretty much just these fan events for them to do like a secondary E3 showcase where they go up on stage, they make a ton of announcements, and a lot of these announcements were much more fan focused. There were portions of this where they were like, oh, and this game is coming to the PlayStation Vita, and they showcase like the Vita during a time in which it was even farther past the grave. It was like at the fucking Earth's core. But as time went on, Sony just stopped going to E3. They took a page out and
I agree with ABF completely. Look, I know a lot of motherfuckers will say exclusives are dead. I know a lot of motherfuckers hate exclusives, and understandably so, right? Because you want to be able to play, you know, Crash Bandicoot or whatever, which I guess is Xbox now, but you get my point. It was predominantly a PlayStation IP for years, like on their PC and shit. I understand the argument from both ends, but you've got personality when you have exclusives. Like, you've got a brand when you have exclusives. You got characters and series and IPs and franchises that you can look at and be like, yup, that's that brand. That like Halo was the Xbox. Dude, they got Halo coming out on PlayStation now. Look, I'm glad Halo fans that have rejected and abandoned Xbox are going to be able to play Halo on the PlayStation. That's cool and all. But there is a loss of that because fanboy wars keep fandoms alive. It is incredibly important to keep fandoms alive. There's a reason that Star Wars versus Star Trek always been a thing. Goku versus Superman, Sega versus Nintendo. Like, fanboys going to war with each other it is an authentic, natural, organic way of keeping fandoms alive and the discourse between them. And like, because it's not like arguing over politics and shit where there's actual stakes, right? The fate of the fucking country is at risk if you've got a bunch of dumbass leftists and you know, passive ass right wingers. That's more than fanboy wars. There's consequences. But when it comes to fucking video games, dude, yeah, bring back exclusives and whatnot, because those sorts of fanboy wars do add personality, and at the end of the day, they are kind of meaningless, but they're meaningless in that fun, irreverent way.
Nintendo's book and started doing the state of plays, and and now there's like no real major face to PlayStation. PlayStation is just a fucking entity, which is something that you also see with Nintendo as well. Like, Nintendo has faces, and they have a lot of very iconic people related to that company. Most of them are developers that kind of turn.
Yeah, you can talk shit on Nintendo all you want. You can come at them for being litigious assholes. You can come at them for being like money-grubbing dickheads, anti-consumer. But you can't deny they know how to build a brand. They know how to be recognizable. Like, there's no console wars anymore. People look at Nintendo, they think Mario, Zelda, Metroid, Star Fox, Smash Bros. Like, Nintendo just got IP after IP after IP, and they dominate in brand recognition. So, again, it ain't above criticism. They do, excuse me, some scummy shit, but they know how to make fans.
Into like more so figureheads at the company, but Nintendo has also been going in that direction as well, where they don't really want to lean into like, oh, focusing so much on their presidents or the super big business guys there. Like, those guys kind of take more of a back seat now, which is fine. I mean, I don't need Doug Bowser patronizingly pretending to tell me how much he cares about the Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD 2D remake on Switch 2. I mean, we're getting a little far away from the point. So,
well, see, Ego says, yeah, the Nintendo fans are a lovely bunch. Look, here's the dealio. You can call them toxic fans or whatnot. I'll default to the Henry Cavill argument, dude. Passionate. They passionate. Like, yeah, it might be annoying seeing people glaze Nintendo over and over and whatnot and say ridiculous shit, but it's fun and it's funny. And at the end of the day, it's kind of irrelevant because, like, again, back to my politics example, there's no real stakes at the end of the day. I like seeing Nintendo fans go to fucking war with Sony ponies and fucking Xbox and whatnot. Shit, I like seeing Nintendo fans go to war with each other. Like, as a Nintendo fan who kind of rejects the Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom method of Zelda, I like going to war with these new-gen Zelda fans who never fucking played Ocarina of Time and Wind Waker and being like, you babies need to shut the fuck up and sit down, the big boys are talking. It's fun.
to kind of bring things back a little bit, this overall shift with these companies feels much more business-oriented. And not to say that they've never been like that. Honestly, them showboating their presidents and big business guys in front of everybody created more of a parasocial relationship, if anything. Which, I mean, to be fair, it was kind of a business decision to create this kind of weird parasocial bond between the video game fan and the CEOs, like Reggie Fils-Aimé and Jack Tretton, making me feel like it's just like, oh man, they're cracking jokes on stage.
Yeah, but no, I don't, like, again, specifically with Reggie, there's a reason that, when did Reggie leave Nintendo? It's been literal years. When did Reggie, Fils-Aimé, however you say it, leave Nintendo? 2019, right? It's been 7 years. There's a reason the Fils-Aimé era, even when Nintendo wasn't doing good, people loved Reggie. It's because Reggie had personality. And adding that personality added a sense of, like, fun amongst the fans. Like, that's... When Reggie was there, he was this cool, hip dude. He signified a new generation of Nintendo. And even when Nintendo was down in the dumps, you could see Reggie just swagger out on stage, all smiles and shit, ready to talk some ridiculous shit. Bro teamed up with the Robot Chicken crew for Nintendo Directs. Like, I like that. There was a sense of community because of that.
Just like me. I love this company. Fast forward to the PS5 era where you had Jim Ryan, who actively looked at fucking Gran Turismo on PS1 and said, who the fuck would ever want that? I don't fucking like this shit. I have a new Nintendo of America CEO, and we're not gonna hear from her at all, I guarantee.
Man, I need to watch Smash's video on this broad. She concerning as fuck, dude. Like, I'm not super up to date on her, but she got me worried. Women in power, bro. Don't like it.
You that. Because in my eyes, these companies are kind of just moving towards, if it don't make us money, why the fuck are we gonna do it? Which is why we were talking about next gen, even when it doesn't feel like that makes any fucking sense to do so. You gotta keep coming out with brand new hardware, and I get it, we gotta keep pushing technology forward, but...
Zero for another 5-banger! At least the remastered version of Quake and Quake 2 was free if you had them, versus Nintendo don't. Sega does what Nintendo don't. Look, my favorite my favorite console of all time will always be the Sega Dreamcast. While I am a Nintendo fan in terms of the modern context, my heart will always be a Sega kid, bro. Always be a Sega kid. Hence the reason I use so many Sonic clips. Shout out. Speaking of, let's do another Sonic clip.
There's nothing more cool than being hugged by someone you like. But if someone tries to touch you in a place or in a way that makes you feel uncomfortable, you touch them back.
Shout out. Thank you so much for the 5-banger, homie.
When the technology is getting pushed forward and it costs a piss ton of money to produce, and the results really aren't that much better than what we're already getting out of a PS5, that's when I feel like they need to sit down and get their priorities in check. Across the board, in the holiday season of 2025, video game hardware was not selling all too well. And I think the companies will probably look at that and go, well, shit, man, we might need to move on to the next gen of hardware. And I don't think that's the problem. Do you know how many people are still playing like Fortnite on the original PS4? I don't think the PS5 really truly had like that giant surge of games that, oh, you can only play on this generation of console, and this is a complete must-have. I think when Grand Theft Auto 6 launches, that's going to be a different story, but you know what? That's going to be in like, I don't know, when the PS7 launches. But even mentioning that, I think that brings...
Yeah, but even then, like, ain't no argument that Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to be like the biggest game of all time in the history of ever. Unfucking fortunately. It's going to normalize the $100 game. Unfucking fortunately. But by the same token, it's going to be a PS5 exclusive for a year and then go to PC, where it's going to be objectively better by every fucking metric. Like, who gives a shit? Like, is anyone in chat, like, let me know, any of you guys in chat, do you give a fuck about Grand Theft Auto 6 on PS5? Are you gonna buy it? Let me know if you're gonna buy it, and let me know specifically if you're gonna buy it day one, versus let me know if you just don't give a shit. D-Stock says no, Nacho Ninja says no, Thalo Green says nope, Patrick Rossi says nope, Sleepy Nova says nope, Alex Darby says never going to buy that game. Zitzel says nope, don't care. Patrick Rock says I'm not interested in Rockstar. ABF, they want people to buy it on PS5 and PC. And the people that will buy it on PC will wait a year and they'll have a much better time with it. Zexel says nope. Randall says don't care about Grand Theft Auto 5. St. Hugo says never. Nobody, dude, literally nobody in chat. Sebrew says maybe when it's on PC. Maybe when it's on PC. Mr. Kruger says, nah, GTA 5 burned me. Sir Lurkington got the same opinion as me. Haven't cared for GTA since San Andreas. Yeah, dude, to me, GTA died after the PS2. I don't like GTA 4 or 5. I don't give a fuck. To me, GTA died after PS2. Butterain Gold says, I will never buy PlayStation again. Abomination AJ says, Red Dead is superior, baby. I have an entire chat right now saying they don't give a fuck about GTA 6. Based.
Up another massive problem with this generation. Development times are getting way too long and games are costing way too much to make. And bringing in a next-gen console...
Games costing way too much to make is entirely self-inflicted. Entirely self. They did this to themselves. Ubisoft having 5,000 fucking employees, they did this to themselves. You know what? Expedition 33 didn't even cost, if I recall, 10 milli to make. Off 33 devs, you know, plus some outsourced teams or whatever. The point is, this is a self-inflicted wound. Get fucked.
Things are just going to get even worse. Game development time and costs have reached absurd levels. And I think it just gets to a point where I look at a lot of the games, a lot of the AAA games, even AA games releasing for the current generation of consoles. And, you know, to act like we're not getting fantastic games is, you know, just a lie. We've had some incredible releases this generation so far. But I'm going to be honest, a lot of the games that are releasing and the games that are taking so damn long all look and play so fucking similarly to games that we got 5 years ago.
Exactly, because it turns out when you don't have limitations, like they had on the PS1 and the PS2 and the SNES and all that shit, and you don't have devs that have to actually be creative and work around those limitations, like The Fog and Silent Hill 2, turns out you get generic fucking slop that doesn't goddamn matter. Nobody gives a shit.
Ghost of Yote is really cool, but it's pretty much just more of Ghost of Tsushima. Then we had Spider-Man 2, which it's just like I enjoyed what I played, but like I still haven't finished that game because it's just like I didn't really feel a huge drive. Like I'm just like I've played this game basically twice before. Yes, this is more technically impressive, but it's kind of, it just feels like more of the same. Even with Nintendo, when Tears of the Kingdom took literally like 6 years to release after Breath of the Wild, and it's just like, yeah, it made sense. There's a lot of under the hood stuff going on with that game, but it's also like, damn, this game took this long and it looks and runs the damn same.
Look, I enjoy my time with Tears of the Kingdom. Hell, I've beaten it twice, actually. Every now and again, I get the hankering to go back to it. And then I was like, let's see what's on Steam. The only time I get the hankering to go back to Tears of the Kingdom is when I'm listening to Legend of Zelda retrospectives or whatever on YouTube. And then rather than actually going back to Tears of the Kingdom, I just pop on a different game on Steam while I listen to the Zelda retrospective.
But Horizon Forbidden West, God of War Ragnarok. Yes, these are fantastic games, but I feel like this generation has felt like it hasn't even really gotten started.
I also love how, like, this video is titled Say No to Next Gen. I really want y'all to think about this. This video is titled Say No to Next Gen. And he's only talking about PlayStation. He's barely mentioned Xbox. Why? Xbox probably dead, right? If they have another console, that's a big ass if. If they have another console, it will be their last. It will absolutely be their last. They aren't even worth discussing when talking about a video titled Say No to Next Gen.
Because a lot of the games that are releasing here are just kind of like more of the same from what we got from the previous generation. Hell, even a game like Astrobot in 2024, like Game of the Year, I love Astrobot. But also, that game is so goddamn similar to not only Astro's Playroom, the free pre-installed game with the PS5, but also the original Astrobot VR game. And of course, that's to be expected, but Astrobot Rescue Mission VR on PS4's PSVR literally...
Seriously, why do we have to pretend that emulated Switch games at 60 FPS don't exist? It's not that people don't pretend they don't exist. I don't know why you would ever make that argument. Fucking Kotaku got blacklisted by Nintendo for telling people how to pirate Tears of the Kingdom for PC 3 days before it even fucking launched. But by and large, when I play a Nintendo game, I want to play it on Nintendo hardware. If it's current gen. Now, I agree with you, if you own the game, it's fine to emulate it. I agree with that completely. But, like, by and large, if I'm buying a Nintendo Switch game, or any Nintendo game that's in current hardware, I want to play it on the console or on the hardware it's native to. That's my personal preference.
Beat for beat follows so much of what Astrobot PS5 did. In addition to Astro's Playroom being obviously like pretty much the foundation for what Astrobot PS5 is. Not saying anything about the quality of Astrobot. And also most of the people I think that played Astrobot PS5 didn't even play Astrobot Rescue Mission on PSVR back in the day. But still, I'm just trying to make the point that, like, this generation, while it has gotten started and it has been going on for 6 years now, a lot of the big games that are releasing aren't really pushing boundaries like mad. Like, it feels like we're just kind of getting a lot of the same franchises and a lot of the same styles of games over and over again. That doesn't mean that things are like, oh, bad or anything. But when we take a look at the Xbox 360 era, we were getting literally like trilogies and then some from a lot of franchises. Like Uncharted 1, 2, and 3, Gears of War 1, 2, 3, and Judgment, Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3, all within like 2-3 years of each other. And I think it's just...
Right. Because we had competent devs that knew how to develop a fucking game. That's why you're able to get them within just, 1 to 2, maybe 3 years of each other. Because they knew how to fucking develop games. They were competent. You had a bunch of sweaty, greasy dudes that actually gave a fuck about the medium instead of some DEI hire that got their position because of the color of their skin or whether they like to fucking munch rugs. Like, it really is that simple. People can complain, and I've made this point many a time, and I'll continue to make it. People can bitch and moan about DEI in the games. Yo, why is there this ugly-ass black woman here in this fucking game when it takes place in medieval Europe? And those are fine complaints to have. But the real problem with DEI isn't in what you see on the screen. It's what's going on behind the fucking scenes.
Making it harder to be super excited when we have to wait 5 years for the next game in a franchise compared to 2 years. You know, and it makes sense. I'm not saying that, oh, these game developers need to work faster or anything, you know. I think a lot of developers already work hard enough. I think these generations...
No, it's not that they do need to work faster, but that starts with hiring people that actually have the drive and the skills and the passion and the care and the consistency that working faster is just an innate capability of them.
Just need to be longer at this point, because a game developer is only going to get like 1 or 2 games out a generation. Or I think a lot of these projects need to...
Yeah, it's saying he was correct. Again, that's what I was saying, like the over-reliance on like these massive, the bloat within the industry. Don't forget the corporate problem on top. Even a cover font doesn't get done without needing to cross like 200 desks. The bureaucracy in the game industry is just, it is maddening.
Slim the hell down. They need to trim the fat. Because I think it's obvious shorter dev times are possible. It can be done. You look at what Insomniac's able to do with Spider-Man PS4 releasing in 2018, and then Spider-Man Miles Morales releasing in 2020. Now, Miles Morales is more of kind of like standalone expansion slash...
Yeah, it's glorified DLC. Call it what it is. It's fucking glorified DLC.
Side story where it's much shorter than a big AAA release. It obviously reuses a ton of assets, but overall, like...
Good! Stop being afraid to reuse assets. Asset reuse is great. Some of the best games in the history of gaming reused assets. Alright? Fucking Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask came out within a fucking year. Majority reused assets. One of the most memorable games in the entire Zelda franchise. One of the fucking best. Because when they reused assets, as good game devs, they did it creatively. Jak and Daxter, guess what? Jak 2 reused a lot of assets. But by God, could they not be more different games? And did it propel the series to all new heights? Doom 2. Again, we can go on and on. Reusing assets is fine if you're not a lazy piece of shit.
I thought that game came out pretty damn good. Yeah, it was shorter, but it's also like, I kind of want a shorter game from time to time. Sue me. Yeah, I'm willing to bring legal proceedings into this discussion. But I think a lot of game studios are at a point where they don't really want to take a lot of risks. I think development costs have gone so damn high that a lot of these companies are going like, well, we just need to put out what works and put a shit ton of money into that, and then just hope it sells 40 million copies. So then, of course, you have the live service initiative, where all of these games need to just live on for years and years and years, and I'm just like, this is getting fucking boring, and it's unsustainable. And I just don't really see what a next-gen console...
And I'm glad it's unsustainable. Burn it to the fucking ground, because we got indie. We got AAA. Let me show y'all something. Let me show y'all a little... AAA, I mean AA. Let me show y'all a little something. Indie game right here. Now, to be fair, this game kind of fucking sucked. But I played it 10 hours total to get the fucking plat, because I had to play through 3 times, because it's a buggy fucking mess. Indie game. Fucking loved it. Recently started Gravity Rush. Enjoying it. Clash Artifacts Chaos. Now, I don't know if this qualifies as indie or not, because it's like made by the people that made like Styx, if I recall. But it's still an interesting fucking game. I loved the hell out of this, dude. 27 hours. Got the plat on this. Fucking loved it. Let's see. What are some others that I've recently played that I've really enjoyed that are from the indie side of things? Let's see. Let's just stay into my recent. Keep scrolling here. Dude, Shipwreck 64. Shipwreck 64, this game was an analog horror video game. It was unintuitive, the controls were wonky, and it was all by design to evoke the old Nintendo 64 feelings while also being like this analog horror game. You had to like go to outside websites to find clues and shit. You had to go to unlisted YouTube videos. It was awesome. Trust me, we'll be fine with just AA. We'll be fine with just AA and indie games. We don't need AAA. Let them fucking burn.
Is gonna do to just tantalize me. With the Xbox Series X and PS5, ray tracing was kind of shown as like, oh, this is the next big step for graphics. And I don't give a fuck about it. So yes, I mean, like, I can see ray tracing. I can understand that, like, oh yeah, you know, that looks really nice, I guess. But like the best ray tracing isn't even like, you don't even notice it. Oh, just really good reflect.
When when I get a game, whatever the default is for ray tracing is what I leave it as. Hey, no, Rebel Overlord, here's the dealio. I'm gonna explain this. It says, what the fuck, my Yandere is a Futanari. People gift me games all the time during streams as jokes, right? I get a lot of Futa games as a joke. Notice how I've never played it. I'm gonna vindicate myself right now. Yeah. No. I accepted it because it was a joke. Notice how there is no, like, it doesn't show anything about time played because I've never fucking played it. Alright? I've never fucking played it. I get these as a joke all the time. Like, Monkey Splash was gifted to me as a joke. Let's see. What's another one? I get these. Bunker with a Femboy. Never actually been fucking played, right? It's just add to the library, nothing else. Motherfuckers send me this shit as a joke. But the good shit that I'm getting gifted, I do play. By the way, I totally forgot. I was gifted. I'm going to accept this right now. Yo, shout out to Mr. Rouge. Blindness over here. I was going to call this out on stream. I forgot. Thanks for reminding me. The Lego Batman Trilogy Pack. Legend. Thank you. Absolutely appreciate the gift, homie. Absolutely appreciate the gift. Thank you oh so much. But yeah. Anyway, that was being said about ray tracing. Whatever the default for ray tracing is, I leave it. I leave it. Like, whatever if the gameplay has ray tracing default on, okay. If the default is off, okay. I never even adjust it because I don't fucking care. Could not give a fuck less about ray tracing.
Reflections, all of that, and like when ray tracing is turned off, like I don't even really notice that it's gone. If technology like this is costing millions of dollars, not only on the development end of things, but also to produce hardware that's capable of producing graphics like that, that's not worth it. And I think games are at a point where if we can hit 4K resolution and 60 frames per second, I think that's as good as things really need to get. Yes,
Agreed.
You could do 120 frames per second, but I'm not currently really at the state where 120 frames really does much for me. Yes, it feels even better than 60 frames per second, but I think 60 is like where a game truly feels great. And I think anything more than that can be overkill. It can definitely be nice, but I don't think it's necessarily necessary most of the time. Now, I've definitely accepted the 4K revolution. I definitely prefer games running in 4K compared to 1080p, but even then, a lot of times games running at 1080p, they still look great. Like 1080p is still a good resolution, but 4K is definitely where things are pretty much like perfect. And they tried to make 8K work. The PS5 console originally launched with an 8K logo on the box. Probably because in 2020, Sony was like, well, that's the next step. It's 8K. We're going to do 8K. We're going to try to sell 8K TVs. But then, like, nobody bought 8K TVs. 8K TVs are barely in production.
To the point where they removed it from the box. I don't know if he's going to cover that or not. And maybe he will. But it is worth noting. Sony flat out fucking removed 8K from the... I think they had 2 games total that released in 8K. Hold on, I could be wrong. How many PS5 games released supporting 8K? Only a very small number of games for support. Roughly, okay, 3 to 5. No Man's Sky, Gran Turismo, F124 have confirmed 8K capabilities, with the Taurus being an early exception on the base model. So yeah. And Callisto Protocol. Great. Awesome. Nobody gives a fuck
anymore, even though they tried selling them, because 8K TVs were stupid expensive, and in practice, nobody could tell a goddamn difference. The only way you're really gonna notice any difference between 4K and 8K is if your TV is literally like...
Zexel says, I remember when 640p was wild. Same, bro. Same. And it's funny, because so when the PS3 released, right? PS3 released, and you could play games in 1080p. And we had a TV that could use 1080p, but out the box, it was defaulted at, I believe, 640. Maybe even less. May have been 380 or whatever. But I believe it was 640. And my dad was playing Dragon Age Origins. And he's playing through it, and he's got like 20 hours in the game at this point. And I remember him being like, why does this not look good? It's the PS3. What, like, he was trying to rationalize why, even though he loved the game, it didn't look right. And he checked the TV settings. He was like, oh. And he changed it to 1080p. And the inherent massive difference that we saw just off the bat was fucking mind-blowing. We, like, sat in awe of just watching my dad continue to play Dragon Age Origins in 1080p. Just like, it could have looked like this the whole time. It was fucking crazy, dude.
200 inches. And even then, I'm sure you won't see that much of a difference. And the fact that 8K hasn't really been, like, adopted by anybody, it's just this giant cycle. Well, nobody wants an 8K TV because nobody's producing 8K video content or 8K gaming content on consoles. But nobody's doing that because nobody's buying 8K TVs. But nobody's buying 8K TVs because there's no fucking reason to buy an 8K TV. 4K is perfectly fine. And yes, I think it's good to keep striving for better, you know, like try to make...
I don't think that it's good to strive for better. Like, sometimes you plateau, and that's fine. Rather than trying to make things better, you try to make things more cost-effective, more convenient, you know, things to that effect. We don't... At some point, the minimal gains are severely outweighed by the price limitations of the average individual. I'm sorry, I don't see a reason.
Better technology, make better products overall, but it's to a point where I think, like, them pushing forward and trying to make better products, better technology for these consoles is more so to just sell us a new console rather than, oh, we have an inherent need for new hardware. So what should really happen here? Because they're going to make a PlayStation 6, and you know, it really sucks because the only way I really see a path forward is the traditional console getting more stuff like what we got with the PS5 Pro, but more frequently throughout the generation. Now, keep in mind, I'm not saying I want that, but this is what I think is going to end up happening, because it ends up making more and more sense for a lot of these console manufacturers to just pretty much make their console basically a PC with a console.
Yes. Hence the GameCube. Hence the Steamcast. Exactly.
User interface, because I'm sure it'll make things easier for developers to pretty much just make a PC build for their games. And then it's just like, oh, it'll work on the new Xbox, it'll work on the new PlayStation, and we can just slide the graphics up and down based on which model do you have. Do you have the PlayStation 6.1, or do you have the
exactly
PlayStation
what it is,
6.2? Well, the 0.2, you can, you know, it'll run a little better on that, and it'll look a little better on that, but it'll still run on the 6.1.
Better yet, rather than just start making your consoles like PCs, hey, plebs, get a fucking PC. Now, admittedly, right now, that's harder to justify and say, given what's going on with RAM and all that. But up until about 5 months ago, bitch, you could have just got a fucking PC. Like,
might not work as well. But I think that's the future that we're heading.
I'd rather die before I see PlayStation turn into a piece of shit. Homie. Best break out the rickety stool and rope, because PlayStation has already turned into a piece of shit. In fact, they did a while ago.
Towards. And it's not that, like, that would be absolutely awful or anything. But if we're going to start getting yearly revisions of these consoles, well, at that point, I think it would be nice if you could just swap out the hardware inside, kind of like a PC. But at that point, then why the f do you have a console then? Just get a PC. But I think a setup where things can be scaled very easily does make sense because, you know, obviously
PCs are still accessible. People drop thousands on hobbies. Apparently PCs are too expensive for them. So here's where I think that this is, and like, I get what you're saying, but I disagree in that PCs and anything tech-based is a little bit different. because of the rapid expansion of technology, like within 6 months, a lot of stuff's already outdated to some metric. 6 months to a couple years. It's different than investing in something like as a hobby, like let's say comic book collecting. You know, comic book collecting, the barrier to entry is so much smaller. You can go search for backlog comics that, like, you know, they're a few cents to a few bucks a piece, and then maybe every now and again you could drop, you know, a couple $100 on like a key issue that you drop a few $100 on first appearance of Wolverine and the Incredible Hulk 182 or whatever it was. Like, the hobbyist mentality for non-tech related things, again, as somebody who like collects, and much less now so, but still does Magic the Gathering, there's the functionality of Magic the Gathering cards when buying old cards will still always be there because there's a bunch of different ways to play the game. There's a bunch of different, you know, the secondary market is always in flux in a way that usually can benefit the person doing the collecting. Like, the reason that PC being so expensive as a barrier to entry is because this is so expensive now. Maybe it'll be cheaper in a year, but when it's cheaper in a year, the next thing is, you know, is so far outclassed it. It just, the rate at which that sort of hobby changes doesn't scale amongst non-tech based hobbies. A desktop PC has a lifespan of 5+ years. I'm not disagreeing with that, but when you're looking at that's not a hobbyist. So, my PC is about 10 years old at this point, like 7 to 10 years old. If you're, what a hobbyist does is they are frequently doing the next new thing. Hobbyists invest in, like, oh, every new Magic the Gathering set coming out, got to get all the sets, or at least the key cards out of the set, stuff like that. Comic books, you got to get all the you know, variant covers, stuff like that. You've got a device built for longevity. That is more for the function of somebody who isn't a hobbyist. That's for more practicality. So hobbyists often don't, whatever your hobby is, oftentimes isn't necessarily practical. Now, there's a few things that are that hobbyists can get into that are practical by default. Like PCs are practical by default. You're a gun guy. In fact, this should work even better for you, ABF, because you're a gun guy. Guns are practical by default. Spending thousands of dollars to make the most advanced, badass competition shooter gun, that's not practical for its conventional use. It's practical for its specialized use. Most people don't go into the specializations unless they're full-on hobbyists.
Honestly, Sony and Microsoft have seen how successful Nintendo has been with the Switch, how excited people are about the handheld PC market with the Steam Deck and whatnot. And Xbox already partnered with Asus to do the ROG Xbox Ally, which is basically like their version of a handheld. But the way Xbox does things, they're definitely just kind of going like, oh, we'll license our name for this, and there we go, we tried a handheld, good for us. But in contrast, it's pretty obvious that Sony is going to take another whack at the handheld market and do something kind of along the lines of the Switch, or at least a new handheld that'll...
People act like PC gaming is out of their reach. In reality, you can get it for less than $2K if you don't listen to people say, no, and I agree with that, ABF. I do. I 100% agree. I'm not saying that PC is inherently, like, more expensive or whatnot. A PC will pay for itself, especially if you're a gamer. Yeah, you might be spending $2K, but then you will inherently be getting, like, so much more in terms of savings and stuff after, like, all the Steam sales, things to that effect. So I don't think it's out of reach. What I do think is the case is that given our current economic state, a lot of people just aren't in a position to be able to, without saving for such a long period of time, get their PC. And then once they're able to do that, things have already evolved so far technologically. It's this hamster wheel of economics. But I mean, I do agree with you. I think the PC is absolutely manageable, absolutely financially viable, if people invest in it and want to do it. Give me one moment. I have to step away for a brief second. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. The Steam Machine is going to be interesting when it comes out. I completely agree. I think the Steam Machine is going to be like a complete and utter game changer. I can't wait for the Steam Machine to, because I've had a huge, me and Cassie have gotten into huge arguments about this. I think the Steam Machine is the gateway for people to get off consoles. It is absolutely the gateway for people to get off consoles.
Play kind of the modern games, but at lower settings, or maybe it'll only play PS5 games and not the brand new PS6 games. But then again, like I said, the PS6 will probably have like 5-6 years of cross-gen releases. I don't know. But I think it makes logistical sense for the next gen to be kind of set up like that. And I'm only saying logistically based on what these companies are already trying to do. Because for me personally, while I see some benefits to this, I also feel like this kind of takes away a lot of like what makes gaming kind of special. When I was a kid, my console was like, this is like my thing. This is my toy. This is where I go for my fun times. And now, I don't know. It's just turning the
dude. When I'd gotten consoles in the past. You know, I'd gotten the SNES. That was my first console. Well, so in my mom's house I had a SNES, and my dad's house I had a Genesis. I actually don't remember which I got first. But like I loved playing them. You know, my dad had a PS1. I loved playing that. You know, the Dreamcast was, again, to this day is my favorite console. When the Xbox, GameCube, and PlayStation era came out, PlayStation 2, my dad got the PS2. At my mom's house we had the Xbox, but I remember for my birthday, I got the GameCube, and the GameCube was mine. Like the GameCube was, this is Leon's GameCube, and I had never felt so attached and in love with a console. Even though I like the Dreamcast more, even though I have you know more reverence for the Dreamcast and its history, and it is my favorite. In that moment as a kid, the GameCube was a game changer.
Console market into basically just the computer market or the smartphone market. And I'm not gonna argue with that being like, well, that's not fun and I don't.
And real quick, to answer what you're saying, Rabnad, I don't think that, no. PCs are not too expensive for most people. Most people just don't understand PC versus console marketing. Like, they are completely different things. People have been conditioned to believe that consoles are more financially viable. That is, in my opinion, completely untrue.
Want that. I want my consoles to just be my consoles for 10 years. Like, I understand things need to evolve, but I just find a lot of things that are trying to be done with video games to just not work the best with how video games work overall. I don't know. Because if we're just going to keep on making more powerful and powerful and powerful hardware, I don't think any game is actually going to take some time and just stop to smell the roses and actually make the most out of a lot of pieces of hardware. You look at what they were able to do with the PlayStation 3 near the end of its lifespan, and some late PS3 games, damn, man, I mean, they just look like low-resolution PS5 games sometimes. And that hardware debuted in 2006. And graphically, yeah, things keep on looking nicer, but the amount that we're able to see things improve, I mean, it's the law of diminishing returns. I mean, we've been at this point for years now where, like, how much better can things get? Yeah, if you compare certain things side by side, you can see, oh yeah, things have gotten better. But in my opinion, are you really gonna look at something like, let's say, Demon's Souls, the Demon's Souls remake on PS5?
Exactly. ABF is 100% correct. PS3 was $5.99 at launch. In fact, and that was in 2006. So let's adjust for some inflation. Inflation calculator. I believe it launched in November of 2006. So we're going to go to November 2006. And we're going to do, let's do 600 to make it even. $964. Effectively a thou wow, right? Effectively a thou wow. You were buying, now to be fair, I got my PS3 for $100, damn near at launch, because I bought it from a cocaine dealer who needed his fix and he was just willing to sell his fucking PS3 for $100 because he needed to pay off some debts or get more coke or whatever it was. That neither here nor there. Anyway, most people paid what is effectively $1,000 today for a fucking PlayStation 3 when it launched. Comparatively, double that, pay $2,000 for a PC. But then you get every game ever in the history of the world, and you get it at either free, because of emulation, or far reduced prices because of Steam sales. Like, guys, PC is not financially unattainable. There's some issues right now due to the RAM stuff. I ain't gonna knock that. Like, that's a problem. But by and large, your PC will pay for itself way quicker. Because you can also do a lot more than just play games, by the way. You can do a lot more. If you incorporate your PC into your daily fucking life, your efficiency will skyrocket. But that's neither here nor there. Point is, you have just so much more avenues for I mean, literally anything. The entire world runs online nowadays. The limitations are basically gone on PC. Whereas on the PlayStation, bro, you buy in $60, $70 games. Maybe they go on sale. They'll throw you a free game once a month if you pay monthly for PlayStation Pro. Right, and AJ says this. It's a machine that will allow you to do so much more. So, like, yeah, you can say, oh, PC is so much more expensive. Well, like, if you're just looking at hard numbers, that's what it looks like. But there's got to be a value proposition. And the value proposition is double the price, but you can do anything and everything in the world that you need to do in your daily life. Plus, you can play games. Your game library is far more expansive, far cheaper, so it pays for itself faster. There's no reason for anybody to believe the lie that PC is out of reach.
And you're gonna go, wow, things have really improved on the PS5 since then. Like, no, that game still looks like it could have released this year or next year or the year after that or the year after that, and you'd still be like, damn, this is a good looking game. So while you can keep pushing things forward, that doesn't mean you need to. But it's obvious these companies know that new hardware is exciting to some extent. So, I mean, even Microsoft is going like, guys, don't you worry. We're working on new hardware. And then everybody's going like, what the fuck are you talking about? You haven't even done shit with your current hardware.
Sir Lordington said it best. Yeah, you pay more up front to save way more in the long run. Exactly.
And I'm like, oh, silly me. Time is just going by fast. I'm getting older, so I don't realize how much we've truly gotten out of the Xbox Series X. Like, we would have gotten that Perfect Dark reboot, even though that was announced in 2020. And then
that's why I hate the inflation metric. It presumes people would pay that much. She paid $600 because it was $600. How much is it at the time? Okay. Inflation is a perfectly valid metric to use because when people talk about prices now, they don't understand the devaluing of the money that's happened in that 20 fucking years. And you need to have that frame of reference. $600 in 2006 was fucking insane. There's a reason the PlayStation 3 struggled to sell at launch. Because $600 then was still fucking expensive. PlayStation 3 struggle bust for like 2 fucking years before it finally found footing. Yeah, $600 in 2006 would buy you a running car. ABF is exactly correct. The idea of hating to use inflation is ridiculous because we're comparing the prices of PCs now to the prices of PS3s back then. Well, for that to be analogous, we have to use what the value of the PC would be in today's pricing to compare it to PC. You are fucking insane if you think that not using inflation would be the way to make this argument. That's retarded. Prop out for 250 says make it a solid 20. Well, thank you. Shout out. I appreciate you, girly. That's fair, but too often people use inflation metric even with $200 consoles. No, that's a stupid issue. They should be doing that. Yes, if you were going to look at thing costs this much now, thing cost that much back then, you need a frame of reference for what it would cost now. Inflation is a thing that happens. The value of money gets less and less, so you need to be able to conceptualize the disparity between the values over any given course of time. Like that, you shouldn't have an issue with that because it makes every sense of logistical sense. If you don't like that, you basically what you're saying is, I don't like hearing the truth.
We finally got gameplay like 4 years later, and then 5 years later they canceled it. But hey, the concept of that was cool. The promise was enough for me to buy the Xbox. And then there was Contraband, which was announced at E3 2021. And then we saw nothing from that game. Then it got canceled in 2025. You can play Super Lucky's Tale from the Xbox One on your Xbox Series X. Who am I kidding? This is why I'm saying no to next gen. I don't want this generation to end because it's just that fucking awesome.
All right.
And there it is, folks. There it is. Say no to next gen. Like, there's... I cannot understand the concept of people who would be willing to buy consoles in this market at this point. Like, dude, your PS4 still completely relevant. Your PS4 is still completely fucking relevant if you can't afford a PC. There is nothing, I mean literally nothing, that a PS5 can offer you that justifies the cost of a PS5 that you can't just do on your PS4 while you save up for a goddamn PC. And with that being said, we are out of time. I have one more video I wanted to go over, but we will hold it until tomorrow because I got shit to do. Thank you oh so much to everybody that came in. We at one point we were hovering around like damn near 120 live viewers. I imagine a lot of that was due to Leaflit. So shout out, thank you. Let's see who we're gonna raid real quick. We gotta get a raid going because there's like 80 something you here. Yes, 84 of you guys. Don't go anywhere. We have got to raid somebody. Spread that love. Let's see. Who is live right now? Yarnwitch, Smoo, Mike, Digital Soulspark. Okay, we're gonna raid my boy. Guys, Digital Soulspark, my boy Jazz. He doesn't get a lot of viewers on his channel. He's a small-time creator. So do me a favor. Do me a solid. Let's give him a badass, awesome raid, because he's my homie, dude. He is my homie. There's 75 of you here. At the very least, raid in, say Vital Idol raid, and just, like, show some love to a homie, right? He's a friend of mine, and he absolutely deserves it. I'm not even going to play an outro. We're just going to end the stream so that all y'all are redirected over there and type in Vital Idol raid. Thank you for the donos. I will see you guys tomorrow for another lunch hour. And until next time, it's all here in the Nerdosphere, and this has been Words of Paradise.